any sense of available resources. Altadena is a very unique and special part of the 5th District. It is a community that embodies the spirit of a big, small town, a community full of rich culture, history, and one that passionately supports the small businesses that drive its economy in the community. It is also one of the only communities in Los Angeles County that manages the urban wildland interface. Altadena is a resilient community. They have seen some significant battles before, but the scale of the impact today is larger than anything that I have seen in my career. The loss of historic resources at Eaton Canyon Nature Center, Farnsworth Park, and the Altadena Golf Course cannot be measured. I saw fire engines and companies from El Dorado County and other parts of California joining Los Angeles County Fire in an effort to protect life and property. In the midst of the emergency, we've all seen individuals who are targeting vulnerable communities by burglarizing and looting homes. This is simply unacceptable. You will be hearing from our DA, Hochman, shortly regarding his efforts to hold these individuals accountable, and I promise you, you will be held accountable. Shame on those who are preying on our residents during this time of crisis. The emergency order will be strictly enforced by the Sheriff's Department, who are proactively patrolling to protect these communities from looting and any criminal activity. They have made 20 arrests of individuals who will be held accountable for the actions that they've taken. I want to thank President Joe Biden and Governor Gavin Newsom for pledging to bring federal and state resources to help Los Angeles County in our moment of need. President Biden's disaster declaration includes the promise of public assistance and individual assistance. We will begin the process of rebuilding. We will have critical resources available to ensure the residents of our communities are not fighting these battles alone. I intend to bring in a motion with Supervisor Horvath as my co-chair or co-author to ratify the county's emergency proclamation at the next Board of Supervisors meeting. Make no mistake, this board and this county will continue to do everything in our power to ensure the safety of our residents as we look forward to the path of recovery. With that, I would like to introduce Supervisor Lindsay Horvath.
With the mayor, let's announce the elected officials.
Okay, so who are we going to? Mayor Bass. I'd like to introduce LA City Mayor Bass.
Thank you, Supervisor. One voice, that is the way we speak, and that is the way we stand here united. Los Angeles will stand united and stand strong. So first of all, my thoughts are with the thousands of Angelenos who are impacted by this emergency, as more Angelenos were forced to make the terrifying decision to evacuate. Our priorities, of course, are to keep Angelenos safe and to protect homes. The winds continue to be of a historic nature and a key factor of this firestorm. For much of Tuesday, the unprecedented winds prevented air operations to continue. However, as of yesterday, the winds have allowed for air operations, and that has enabled significant progress against the fires in Hollywood and Studio City last night. And as of 7:30 this morning, evacuation orders in Hollywood have been lifted. Angelenos cooperated. The community stood together. They evacuated, and Angelenos should continue to proceed with caution. Air operations are continuing rapidly in the Palisades, in Sylmar, and across our region. We continue to see our heroes, from our LA firefighters and from personnel, families, neighbors from across the county and the state. We thank you. However, we continue to confront a big one-level firestorm. Historic winds and extensive drought have created a perfect storm that has driven people from their homes and have taken people's homes, and that has taken people's lives. I've been in the fire zones, and you can see how fast and devastating these wind-driven fires are. I know people from all over the nation are asking how they can help. So here are 2 essential ways. First of all, support the California Community Foundation Wildlife Recovery Fund at calfund.org, and support the Los Angeles Fire Department Foundation at supportlafd.org. And in addition to shelters, Airbnb is offering free temporary housing. Go to 211LA.org for more information. This, as we know, is a regional crisis. So working together is the only way we will get through this. That's why I've been in constant contact with my colleagues at the county, state, and federal level. President Biden, Governor Newsom have assured us of full state and federal support. And of course, County Chair Barger and I are fully coordinated, as I am with all of the local elected officials. And our fire departments, police departments, utilities, and other critical agencies are coordinated as well. We have pre-deployed, we are executing a strategy, and we are adapting to conditions on the ground in real time. This is absolutely an unprecedented historic firestorm, but we are all hands on deck. We need to continue to cooperate. We need to evacuate when asked to do so. We need to help others, help our neighbors. And first and foremost, we need to stay united. We need to stay strong. A united LA is the way we will recover, is the way we rebuild our communities. And with that, I believe I am introducing Supervisor Lindsay Horvat.
Good morning. The strength and resilience of Los Angeles County is more than anything we are seeing on the ground. I know this because of the relentless fight that our first responders, our firefighters, our law enforcement officials are putting forward, giving it everything they've got to take on each of these fires throughout the region. That being said, this is testing even the strongest among us. Last night, I personally received an alert from Nixle that I too was under evacuation warning, and I was put in the shoes of tens of thousands of Angelenos who have been facing this from the moment the fires broke out. No one should have to choose which priceless memento they're going to take with them or leave behind in order to stay safe, for their families to stay safe, for their communities to be safe. I've heard from so many community members about the pricelessness of the community centers, the faith centers. I know that in the Palisades alone, there are more than 20,000 Jewish community members, and I was contacted by the Jewish Federation and the work that they are doing throughout the region to support the Jewish community. We've heard with the Eaton fire, the loss of so many faith centers throughout the Palisades fire and so much more. These are not just structures. These are places where people have made lasting memories, memories they will hold on to. But as they look at their community now, their hearts break, and we are in mourning with them. This is a time of grief, and that is why it is tremendous that our governor and our president and all of the leaders behind me and all of the leaders out throughout Los Angeles are standing strong for all of our Angelenos who are suffering great heartache. The Pacific Palisades has suffered immense loss, and my heart goes out to all of the residents who are continuing to try to understand what is left of their homes. In the Topanga Canyon, I've been speaking with residents throughout the night, and I know that One Topanga and TSEP have been in constant communication with those on the ground, and we are in communication with them to ensure that we are supporting Topangans on the ground. I know there's this morning a fire active behind the lumber yard, and the chief has personally deployed resources to ensure that we are actively fighting the fires in Topanga. Topanga Canyon is a treasure, and we are fighting to protect it. Sunset Mesa, when you look at what is left, is heartbreaking. The community members of Malibu and Santa Monica, which last night declared a curfew because of the tragedy that they're experiencing on top of the fire, people trying to take advantage of this crisis. It's absolutely unacceptable, and we will all stand together to keep each and every neighborhood safe. The Hollywood Hills, my heart broke with you last night. I am grateful for the swift work and the aerial assault that took place in order to protect our Hollywood Hills quickly. When you saw a home go up in flames in Studio City, you wondered if that was going to be the next outburst. The residents of Studio City, we stand with you. And in Sylmar, we have at least achieved some containment of the Hearst fire, but we have a long way to go, and we are watching and standing with you. This is a moment where we will share detailed updates, but we will not forget that behind each of these updates is a person who deserves our support. With that, gas shutoffs continue to affect more than 15,000 people in Malibu from Brentwood Country Club to Pepperdine. A boil water advisory remains in effect for the Sunset Mesa community from Topanga Beach and Coastline Drive to the south on Shore Heights Drive on the north, and Topanga Canyon to Carbon Canyon Road in Malibu, including communities of Big Rock and Carbon Mesa. Metro fares remain suspended today thanks to the leadership of Metro Board Chair Hahn and our CEO Stephanie Wiggins. If you have essential travel today, please do so safely away from the areas of the evacuation orders. If you do not have essential travel, please remain indoors. For the latest updates and service impacts, you can go to alerts.metro.net. LA County Assessor Jeffrey Prang has shared property tax installment deferral applications, misfortune, calamity, damage reassessment applications, and disaster relief FAQ for property owners affected by the fires at assessor.lacounty.gov. All LAUSD schools and Santa Monica Malibu Unified School District schools in the 3rd District are closed. With that, mental health supports are available through the county's Department of Mental Health. You can call 800-854-7771. Please use this resource. We know you are experiencing traumatic pain, and we want to do our best to help start healing. Thank you for the outpouring of support from across the county and across the country. Emergency Network LA is coordinating volunteers and support through enla.org. Our county is doing everything possible to respond to these fires until they are contained. And as Chair Barger referenced, today is a day of mourning. And in the words of former President Carter, our faith calls us to do all that we can, wherever we can, with all we can. And in this spirit, indeed in this moment calls us to do the same. Thank you. Next, I'd like to welcome LA County Fire Chief Anthony Maroney.
So good morning. Thank you, Supervisor Horvath. I will be providing an Eaton Fire update in addition to a Region 1 update. The Eaton Fire remains estimated to be 10,600 acres, and growth has been significantly stopped. And we have 0% containment. We have over 879 firefighting personnel assigned, and mutual aid resources continue to arrive to assist with this firefight. From this point forward, incident fatality information and reporting will be the responsibility of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. We have several reported injuries and over 1,000 structures damaged and destroyed. The cause of the fire remains unknown, and it continues to be under active investigation. As I stated yesterday, as soon as a cause is determined, we will advise the media. The Lydia fire that started yesterday in Acton has been 40% contained and forward progress has been stopped. It is limited to 348 acres. The number of resources assigned to this fire siege event has increased significantly, and we have a much better posture than we did on Tuesday and Wednesday. Out-of-state resources continue to arrive in Los Angeles County and City, and we are appreciative to our fire partners from throughout the Western United States for providing assistance to Los Angeles County in our time of need. Regarding the current red flag warning, the National Weather Service predicts the warning will remain in effect for Los Angeles County and the majority of Ventura County through Friday. I would like to also acknowledge the presence of Dr. Lori Moore Merrill from the U.S. Fire Administration, who flew out with her team from Washington, D.C. last night to be with Fire Chief Crowley and I so they could witness firsthand the challenges and the devastation that have resulted. Lastly, I want to acknowledge the tireless efforts of my LA County Fire Department personnel, both on the front lines and those behind the scenes, who continuously place themselves in harm's way to protect residents and property in our great county of Los Angeles. Thank you for always being there, and continue to be safe as they take care of themselves, those around them, and the people we serve and protect. Thank you, and I'd now like to invite up Fire Chief Kristen Crowley of the Los Angeles Fire Department.
Thank you, Chief Maroney. So good morning. We continue to battle multiple major brush fires in the city of Los Angeles and across the Los Angeles region. Today, we expect winds to subside somewhat, which will allow fire crews to increase containment lines. However, and I want to be very clear here as well, we are still under red flag warning with extreme fire behavior possibilities. Before I give you an update on several fires in the city of Los Angeles, I have to take a moment, for all the right reasons, to thank the residents of Los Angeles and our surrounding areas for heeding our instructions. Today, it is absolutely imperative that as we move into day 3 of this firestorm, all members of our Los Angeles community maintain vigilance. I will now give you an update of our activities that occurred overnight. Palisades fire, as we know, started January 7th at 10:30 hours in the morning. Size at this point is 17,234 acres. We are in unified command, LAFD, CAL FIRE, LA County Fire, LAPD, and LA Sheriffs. 0% containment. Extreme fire behavior continues to challenge firefighting efforts for the Palisades area. Wind gusts are up to 60 miles per hour and are expected to resume throughout the entire day. Firefighters and air resources will continue to work to protect the community and infrastructures and gain control so that we can contain this fire. Damage assessments are ongoing at the Palisades fire. However, preliminary reports estimate the damage or destroyed structures to be in the thousands. It is safe to say that the Palisades fire is one of the most destructive natural disasters in the history of Los Angeles. We will continue to provide additional information as it becomes available. I'll move on to the Hearst fire. January 7th start. The size, 855 acres. We're unified in command, LAFD, United States Fire Service, Angeles National Forest, and LAPD. 0% containment. Firefighters held the fire within a planned containment area and are successful, and we have established a perimeter. Crews were able to get a handle on a few of the flare-ups over the night. We will continue to strengthen our containment lines and create a number of dozer lines to minimize the fire growth. Next, Woodley Fire started on January 8th. The size, 30 acres. Containment, fully contained, and we are using fire patrols to monitor the area for any flare-ups. The fire has been declared as a knockdown, and there are no current threats. Next, the Sunset Fire, which is in the Runyon Canyon area, started last night, January 8th. Size, 42.8 acres. Forward progress, I'm very glad to share with everybody, was stopped, and the crews are working to put out spot fires within the perimeters and to keep the wind from spreading any additional embers. As of 7:30 this morning, all evacuation orders have been lifted. This fire was rapidly and aggressively attacked by using coordinated air and ground fire suppression efforts. Residents heeded our timely evacuation orders. More information to come on that. Next up, the Sunswept Fire, which is in the Studio City area. As I talked about all the previous incidents, on top of this, our fire department was faced with another massive challenge. A very large structure fire encompassing 2 large hillside homes with heavy fire, which exposed brush, broke out in the Studio City area of Los Angeles. The high winds caused the fire to extend within the adjacent brush, potentially causing another additional brush fire. Our LEFD poured all available resources into this fire, and through a combined effort, were successful in preventing another devastating brush fire. Our firefighters stopped the forward progress at just under 1 acre. Also, to be clear, all of the incidents that I just spoke about are all under an active investigation. Let's talk about the preparations for today. The LAFD continues to augment and recall all of our firefighters to fill every single available seat on every single available apparatus within the city of Los Angeles. Firefighters continue to move into the Southern California region from across the western region of the United States, and we are very, very grateful for any assistance that we are receiving. Weather conditions are beginning to turn favorably, which will allow us to increase our containment lines. Again, our primary focus remains on impacting and affecting rescues and saving lives while protecting property. The multiple incidents across the city and the region continue to tax our firefighters. However, rest assured that every single firefighter, first responder, law enforcement officer across the region remains 100% committed to protecting our communities. Here's your call to action. Stay informed with trusted news and official updates. Be prepared to evacuate if you live near a wildland area. Follow all evacuation warnings and orders without delay. We also ask the public to stay off the roadways and away from any impacted areas, which we want to make sure there's zero room for any other issues when it comes to delays for our firefighters, first responders to get to where we need to go. I want to take just a moment to thank every single Los Angeles resident who's been impacted by this for staying vigilant, supporting our first responders, and helping your neighbors. Thank you to Mayor Bass, our city leadership, everybody that is here. As you can see, we stand with every single community member, business, anybody that's been negatively impacted by all of these incidents. We stand with you. We're going to remain strong with you as well. And I tell you, we're throwing everything at this that we possibly can, and we're going to move through this and continue to support one another. With that, I will go ahead and introduce our next speaker, which is Sheriff Luna. Sir?
Good morning, Robert Luna, the Sheriff of Los Angeles County. Currently, we have well over 400 sheriff's personnel that are still actively deployed to the fires, in addition to our normal staffing for patrol-related functions throughout the County of Los Angeles. Deputies continue to assist our residents with evacuations. They are performing a lot of humanitarian missions, so many stories to share, don't have time right now, providing food and blankets to people, rescuing people who unfortunately did not evacuate when they were asked to. So you've heard it over and over up here. A lot of the stories of heroic actions by our deputy sheriffs, police officers, or firefighters, a lot of them are taking place from people who did not choose to evacuate, putting their own lives at risk. So please, if you're asked to evacuate, evacuate, because it's not only your life you're putting in danger. We continue to conduct roving patrols, manning hard road closures, providing security in evacuation areas to prevent anyone who may be tempted to engage in criminal behavior like looting. It was mentioned earlier before by the supervisor, and I'm going to make this crystal clear to everybody out there. Over last night and this morning, we are up to 20 individuals who chose to go into our areas and deprive these poor people who have been through so much of their property. Absolutely unacceptable. And I'm going to give direction to our department members. As you know, when we have an evacuation order by law, if you remain in that area, you are guilty of a misdemeanor. If you commit certain crimes, it could jump up to a felony. I'm going to be asking our employees to start enforcing that. That is very different than a curfew. Why? Because it's 24/7. I don't have to wait for the sun to go down or the sun to come up. If you are in one of these areas and you do not belong there, you are going to be subject to arrest. I hope that is as clear as I can make it, because our first choice isn't to do enforcement. It's not to make arrests. It's to help people. But if people choose to commit crimes, they're going to be held accountable. And the DA, who is standing next to me, will clarify even that a little bit further. This continues to be a fluid and evolving crisis, and the numbers that we release throughout this incident are going to fluctuate. So anything we say is subject to change. We're getting information from our boots on the ground. It's very chaotic out there because it's still so fluid. So forgive us if we give a number and then we have to modify those numbers. I talked about the 20 arrests that have been made so far. Unfortunately, I do expect that to go up. We're not going to tolerate that kind of activity. We have substantially increased our deployment of deputies at the fixed traffic post and are trying to limit and clear out any unauthorized vehicles or people in these areas. I do want to talk as we are summoning more resources. I have been in contact with the chief of the Office of Emergency Services for the state of California. Obviously, that's done at the direction of Governor Newsom. From the get-go of this, he has offered any and all resources to us in law enforcement, and they're doing the same for fire, but I'll specifically talk about policing. The California National Guard is on standby at our direction, specifically my direction, and we, along with my partner Jim McDonnell at the LAPD, are currently in discussions if we are going to need them or how we would deploy them as the hours go on. So stand by for that information as the hours tick on. Chief Maroney mentioned this regarding any death toll information. Yes, we had preliminary numbers yesterday. I got to be honest with you, as I reviewed some of those last night and this morning, I was not satisfied with some of the information that we're getting. And it's not the fault of our people. The people that are working under very difficult conditions are doing their best to do what they need to do. At one point, we'll be able to do a more thorough search of these impacted areas. Some of them look like a bomb was dropped in them, where we will be able to bring in canines and other things to help us hopefully not discover too many fatalities. That's our prayer. But this is a crisis, and we don't know what to expect, but we're ready for everything. So all information, at least on the county side of this equation, we're working with our coroner's office. We'll figure out those numbers. So be patient with us when you ask us about death toll numbers. Right now, frankly, we don't know yet. We eventually will. Evacuations overall for Palisades, Eaton, Hearst, and Lydia fires. The number in both county and city areas, evacuation orders are impacting 179,783 residents. That's nearly 180,000 people in Los Angeles County that are currently under evacuation orders, with another close to 200,000 residents that are under evacuation warnings. I cannot emphasize enough that I urge residents that are asked to evacuate to follow our warnings. I gave some examples earlier. I'm going out through my staff, hey, give me some stories where our deputies are just constantly putting their life on the line, and in every example I'm given is as a result of somebody who chose not to evacuate. I don't want to tell those stories anymore. I don't want to give stories of our first responders being injured, specifically our communities being injured. Please, if you're told to evacuate, evacuate. Two of our sheriff substations are out of power, running on generators. That's both our Altadena and Crescentia Valley stations. They're right in the thick of things. They're engaged in all of the work that I've described. The issues of mutual aid. Will consistently evaluate and reevaluate the needs for more law enforcement personnel. But I can tell you I'm getting calls from all over this region, from other sheriffs and police chiefs. Everybody wants to help. And that's awesome. That's part of our profession. Very proud to be part of it. The last thing I'll say is, for any specific information regarding evacuation orders or warnings or any road closures, and there's a lot of them, please go to lacounty.gov/emergency. Thank you very much. And with that, I am going to introduce the Chief of the Los Angeles Police Department, Jim McDonald.
Morning, and I'll start off with a sincere thank you to all who have cooperated and supported the first responders and others who've been out there doing the best they can to make this as manageable as it can be. We're still on full tactical alert at the LAPD in support of our fire partners to be able to accomplish their mission. We're assisting with safety as well as the evacuation sites. You heard the sheriff quote the numbers of people who are out there using those. And again, we want to provide every level of safety we can for those involved in that effort. We've been joined by our Port Police and Los Angeles World Airport Police partners as part of the city family in doing the jobs that we're doing as we move forward today. But I want to thank our team. Many of our team and many of the people who are here behind me have left their families in fire areas to come to work to be able to help others. We've had a large number of people who have been evacuated, a large number of people in this group here who either family or friends have lost their own homes and lost everything they own and are dealing with taking care of young families at the same time while they're trying to balance the needs of work with the needs and responsibilities of family. We truly are all in this together, and we have to look at it that way as we move forward. The advice I would give is consistent with what you've heard. The air is not healthy for people who are challenged from a respiratory standpoint. So if you don't have to come into an area that's so impacted, please don't. Traffic, we're trying to maintain ingress and egress to our emergency areas for first responders in particular. We had, as you heard, people coming in still from other states to be able to help in the fire suppression effort, and we need them to be able to get in and be able to do what they need to do as easily as possible. The evacuations, they will probably still continue as the winds pick up. So we want to be able to do that as effectively as we can. Again, I said thank you for the cooperation, but I ask for additional cooperation should the need arise as we move forward. This is anything but predictable. We're thankful for the wind conditions we have now and the ability for our fire partners to try and make up for lost time, to be able to put containment around several of our burn areas and to be able to move forward on that. But again, I just want to say that you've heard from, and you'll hear in a minute from the DA, but from the sheriff about our crime suppression efforts. For those who want to take advantage of others, we're there. We're going to be there, and we're going to be working to hold you accountable for what you're doing in that regard. But as this runs its course, fatigue will certainly become a significant factor for those who are both directly involved in the operation as well as members of our community. So again, we are very thankful for the people who are doing this on all of our behalf, but we need to stick together. We need to support each other. And this is a thing where morale is a big deal for both the community and all of our folks. So take care of each other out there, and let's do the best we can. Thank you. Now, I mentioned our DA Hockman. It's now my pleasure to introduce the newly elected District Attorney of Los Angeles County, Nathan Hockman.
Yesterday, I bore witness by walking and driving through Pacific Palisades. I ended up at my sister's house, a house where she and her husband had raised 4 boys, celebrated birthdays, barbecues, and whatnot, and that house has been burned to the ground. And not just her house, but all her neighbors. Up and down each one of the blocks I traveled, those houses no longer exist. They are now basically rubble. And I haven't seen something like that, and I've lived here almost over 60 years. In the entire time I've been here, it looked apocalyptic. Not since the 1990s, when Los Angeles was hit with the fires, the flood, the earthquake, and the riots, have I seen such disaster occur here in our city. But like back then, Los Angeles has true grit. It has resilience. And it will rebuild, and it will rebuild better than ever. But along the way, there might be people out there who want to take advantage of the people who are suffering these tragic losses. These criminals need to hear, as they've heard from the sheriff, as they've heard from Chief McDonald, an unmistakably clear message that if you want to go ahead and loot, if you want to commit burglary, if you want to engage in grand theft, if you want to engage in these internet scams where you're going to take advantage of people who are going to be seeking insurance and government benefits, you will be arrested, you will be prosecuted, and you will be punished to the full extent of the law. And the reason I want to send this warning now is I don't want any mistake later that somehow they thought, oh, it's not a big deal. It's a huge deal. These acts are despicable, and we will prosecute them with maximal punishment. So I want to make sure that message is received loud and clear, because the first responders in this situation have been simply heroic. As I was in Pacific Palisades, I not only saw fire departments from LA County and LA City, I saw Rialto, Poway, Redding, fire engines from across this entire state that have come to our rescue. And thank you. Thank you to all the first responders. When it comes to law enforcement, it's an all-hands-on-deck operation with law enforcement and the DA's office. Again, detectives are putting on uniforms and getting out there on the streets to protect us. We owe them a huge thank you. And from the DA's office, if we do get these cases, please be on notice that we are going to try and deter you from committing the crimes in the first place. But if you do commit these crimes, do not expect anything else than maximal punishment. I'll now introduce LA County Public Works Director Mark Priscilla.
Good morning. As was stated, my name is Mark Pastrella. I'm the Director of the Los Angeles County Public Works Agency. First I want to say my heart, of course, goes out to everyone affected by the devastating event. I personally toured many of the areas yesterday and met with residents, and as everyone here has described, it's an absolute tragedy, including the life safety support system, our infrastructure that has been destroyed that supports life in these communities. I know from personal experience that fielding a loss from a wildfire, and I have tremendous respect for our firefighters and other first responders, our police force, the Sheriff's Department for the work they are currently doing. In fact, our current mission, which has been going 24/7 for 3 days now, is to support our fire department and our Sheriff's Department and the local PDs in their efforts to save lives. That is our number one mission right now and what we are currently continuing to do, unfortunately, as this event is still active. We are also focusing on the inevitable recovery and repopulation of the areas that we will build back and build back strong. The current focus is on utility restoration, and I know many people are already asking about that. Your sewer, water, your power system, and the transportation system have all been significantly damaged. The heat of this system, the wind that blew also knocked down thousands of trees into the roadway. So what we have is a tremendous amount of debris throughout the communities that have had experienced this fire. This debris has been moved enough to let our firefighters and our sheriff and PD into the area to do their work, but it's going to need to be processed and moved safely out of the area, and we are working on a coordinated effort across LA County to do debris removal, the debris removal that it will be necessary to restore the community back to its former way of life. The debris can be hazardous. The debris that is on the private property is considered hazardous and may be toxic. And so I want to warn everybody now that is either there who's remained behind or who is visiting the areas. As was mentioned earlier, it is not safe. It is not safe to touch the debris. It is not safe to remove the debris yourselves. There is a process for that, and we will be mobilizing with the City of Los Angeles to provide a health review of every property and make sure that when we move that debris that it's done in a way that's safe and safe for you and for the other residents who remain behind in the area. We are also working on water supply system. The water supply system currently is still supplying fire suppression. Last night we got to see the wonderful use of our reservoirs, the city's reservoirs and our reservoirs, to take water from the reservoirs and actually use firefighting event aerial attacks to the system. You saw what a difference that made in the firefight last night, and those reservoirs are full and continue to be ready and at the disposal of our firefighting friends. The municipal water system continues to suffer poor water quality due to the introduction of ash and debris into our reservoirs and into our filtration systems. So there are specific areas that we are asking for water to be boiled. I would just say with all caution, anyone who's remained behind, if there is any residence in your area that is burned to the ground and you are still there, you should just go ahead and boil water. We will be actively coming to communities in the next day, within this day or next day, delivering water, domestic water to people who remain in the fire zone area. LA County will be coordinating that effort, not only for the District 29, but also we'll be working with the City of LA to deliver water to residents who've remained behind or who again have partial damage and are maybe staying in their homes. I want to again just mention that a firefight with multiple fire hydrants drawing water from municipal water systems for several hours is just not sustainable. That's why the air support is so important. Our residents in the Sunset Mesa, Topanga Beach area, Coastline Drive on the south to Shore Heights Drive on the north are up in the area. This is a partial damaged area or a threatened area. The Topanga Canyon Road to Carbon Canyon Road Mesa as well is another area that's threatened. So all of what I just talked about applies to you residents who are there. Now what can we do? What can the public do? What you should be doing as we sort of still active fire. I will reiterate that it's extremely important to listen to the sheriff and to PD when you are asked to evacuate immediately. Do not hesitate. Do not wait. Your life is not worth it. The systems that you're leaving behind, they are going to be impacted and they cannot be restarted easily. So I know a lot of people are talking about, starting up. If you're thinking about creating your own water and sewer and power system at your home, I want you to be very careful about that. That is not something that a licensed contractor should be doing or our utility folks. Please don't do that. As I said yesterday, if you're leaving your home, I want to make sure that you lock that home, that you close that home up tight, and that you leave access for firefighters by not closing gates or creating a situation where they can't get to your home to fight off fire. The road system is impacted heavily throughout LA County, including city and county areas. There are multiple, in fact, hundreds of stop signals that are currently flashing red. I want to remind everybody that you treat that as a stop sign and you stop for that flashing. And if you come to a barricade, you need to turn around because those streets are closed for the purpose of recovery and not for looky-loos. Please do not argue with the sheriffs that are there or the PD. If the road is closed, there's a good reason for it. It's because it's not safe for you to be in that area. And that safety includes the debris that I was talking about. Trees down, potholes, road systems destroyed, There could be breaks in the roadway that could cause major damage to your vehicle. So I'm asking that you comply with all road closures until further notice. We are available as a 24/7 agency. You can reach our department at 1-800-675-HELP. We do need every citizen. There's something else you can do. If you see something, please tell us about it. Whether it's a gas leak, whether it's a utility line down, if it's a signal that's not malfunctioning, if it's a sewer system leak, any of those things that keep our life safety system going, we need to know about them so we can catalog them and get to them. Please know, and I do need to mention, that all of the utility workers, not just my folks at LA County Public Works, but the folks at the City of Los Angeles, the folks at the Southern California Edison, the gas company, we are all coordinating with each other to restore your systems. And our folks are all working 24/7. There are many heroic stories, like the sheriff and fire have, of our utility folks out in the middle of the night, 24/7, getting those systems back up into place. And I want to thank all of the utility workers who are out there doing their job, who are not going home to family at night. They are actually working 24/7 as well. With that, I want to introduce the CEO and Chief Engineer of the Department of Water Power, Janice Quinones.
Good morning. I am Janice Quinones, CEO and Chief Engineer of LADWP. LADWP crews continue to work around the clock to restore power and support firefighting efforts. On the power front, we have restored about 200,000 customers so far since the windstorm started. And as of this morning, we have approximately 95,000 customers out. We have 118 crews, DWP crews, working around the clock to restore powers as fast and as safe as possible. We're expecting our mutual aid crews coming from PG&E to arrive today and support the restoration efforts. Our restoration times are ranging from 24 to 48 hours. We are prioritizing wires down, so if you see a wire down, please call 911 and we'll send crews immediately to make the area safe. However, if you live in the fire-impacted areas or near those areas, you might experience longer outages, mainly because either our equipment has been compromised due to the fire, we're not able to access the area yet, or we're proactively shutting out the power for the safety of our firefighters and first responders. On the water side, the boil water notice for Palisades on zip code 90272 continues in effect, and it will continue in effect for at least 48 hours. I have water quality engineers taking samples around the system to ensure that the water quality remains a priority for our consumers. We continue to support LAFD and CAL FIRE and water supply issues and firefighting response, including opening our water reservoirs, as mentioned by Mark yesterday. Hollywood Reservoir was a critical asset when we were fighting the Sunset Fire. So all our reservoirs are open, that are open air for air assets, and we continue to work around the clock with other water agencies to increase the supply and pressure of the water system, including Metropolitan Water District. I want to end this by thanking DWP crews and personnel for their commitment and efforts to support the restoration of LA. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And now,
Yeah, and I also want to, we recognized President Biden and Governor Newsom, but we also have here with us today Congressmember George Whitesides, Congressmember Laura Friedman, Senator Sasha Renee Perez, Assemblymember Celeste Rodriguez, and Malibu Mayor Doug Stewart. Make no mistake, we are all working together, and I want to thank you all for being here. I know our Congress representatives flew in, and we appreciate it, and we are all in this together. With that, we'll take some questions.
thank you, Chair Barger. So just a couple rules of the road. So I'll call on you. When you get called upon, please announce your name and which media outlet you are with, and we'll start right here in the middle.
Jonathan Bigliotti with CBS News. For Mayor Bass, please. Mayor, LA County is in a panic state. It began 2 days ago with the Palisades fire. My crew and I arrived shortly after it started, and for several hours we watched as hundreds of homes in a neighborhood burned to the ground. We did not see a single fire engine. We watched as Good Samaritans guided traffic. There was fear and there was a lot of confusion. You were out of the country at the time. Shortly after the fire started, a press release was put out warning of this fire behavior. My question to you is, what explains this lack of preparation and rapid response?
Let me just say, first and foremost, my number one focus, and I think the focus of all of us here with one voice, is that we have to protect lives, we have to save lives, and we have to save homes. Rest assured that when rest assured, let me finish. Rest assured, when that is done, when we are safe, when lives have been saved and homes have been saved, we will absolutely do an evaluation to look at what worked, what didn't work, and to correct or to hold accountable any body, department, individual, etc. But my focus right now is on the lives and on the homes.
Do you think your leadership was effective while responding to this disaster?
I just said what I believe is the most important thing for us to do right now, and that is going to continue to be my focus. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to the middle with the laptop.
Before we go on, I want to introduce, because this is an important announcement to be made, the U.S. Forest Service Fire Chief Robert Garcia has an announcement regarding a decision being made on the National Forest.
Thank you, Supervisor, and I'll be brief. I just wanted to share that in the overnight hours last night, the U.S. Forest Service, in an effort to reduce calls for service and reduce potential risk for wildfire, we've made a decision until further notice that the Angeles National Forest is closed. And so we'll get some additional information out, press release, that kind of information on the details of that closure, but it's similar to the types of orders that the county and the city have instituted regarding curfews and access and that type of thing. So the Angeles National Forest will be closed till further notice, likely till we get through this current fire weather event.
Thank you for that. We'll go in the middle. Name and media outlet, please.
Hi, Thomas Fuller from the New York Times. For Chief Luna, I just wanted to follow up on what you said about you weren't satisfied with the information that you were getting on fatalities. It's been widely reported that there were 5 deaths, at least 5 deaths. Do you believe that death toll is not accurate, and do you think it's less than that?
Based on all the information that I've received in the last probably 8 hours, I want to be more confident in the specific information that I'm getting. So what we're doing now is going back through everything, because you got to understand the urgency, the chaotic nature of what we're dealing with, and we're still in the middle of that. So I want to make sure that as we go forward, at least for the Sheriff's Department, we're actually having our homicide unit involved, because they don't only do murder investigations, they do death investigations, that I'm going to change the system and verify each number. Because I don't care if it's just one, that's somebody's family. That's somebody we love and care for. So I want to make sure that's solid before we start presenting that information. Unfortunately, based on the preliminary information I've seen, at least in the two large fires that we're dealing with on each side of the county, unfortunately, I think the death toll will rise. I hope I'm wrong, but I think it's going to rise.
Thank you for that. Let's go right over here in the front.
Yeah, Josh Haskell, ABC7 Eyewitness News. Mayor Bass, I've been on the fire lines the last 2 days. I've never seen firefighters this desperate. At fire hydrants, water not coming out, the pressure so low, the number one tool that they use to fight these fires, not there. How frustrated are you about that? And also, I'm getting texts right now from the Palisades Highlands community. We're almost 48 hours after this fire started. There's not resources up there. The hydrants aren't working. Where's the National Guard? Where are miles and miles of water tenders? How are we addressing this?
Well, first of all, you asked me, was I frustrated by this? Of course, because we all know that this has been an unprecedented event. We also know that fire hydrants are not constructed to deal with this type of massive devastation, and that the number one problem, especially on Wednesday, was the fact that we weren't able to do the air support because of the winds. And so, of course, I am absolutely frustrated by that. I am not sure that is correct, that there are no resources up there, but rest assured, as soon as we are done here, I will follow up on that.
But those homes, the first day and a half, there were homes up there that had been protected by the fire. And then I went up there yesterday, and there were
That had
lots
been
of
protected?
that it basically had been saved. Obviously, the fire's moving in different directions, but when I went up there yesterday, there were not a lot of resources. We drove around, and then I know that things got worse up there. I'm just wondering, now that we move 48 hours past, how are we addressing these water problems that are continuing, and is it acceptable that they continue?
Well, let me just say that the water problems are a little better now because the winds are such that we can go up and have the air support. And you know that that was the reason that the devastation was so bad, the unprecedented wind, the strength of the wind, and the fact that the air support could not go up.
And if Chief Crowley wants to talk to this, there have been many fires before where air support is not available, and we depend upon these ground resources and crews. Was there a plan in place for that, and did the resources get here quickly enough? Because and talk about an update to air support today.
Right. So thank you for that question. As we know, and you heard all of the incidents that are occurring at this point. Palisades was the first brush fire that we were attacking at that moment. You talk about specific pre-deploying. We put resources in place, pre-deploying, knowing that the winds were coming. With that, when the fire did light and take off, rapid response. Very dynamic situation. Air to ground resources coordinating. Now, with the winds, I don't think we can overstate that enough. There's no excuse in regard to the winds were too much, but the reality is the winds are so dynamic. And at that tipping point, when our resources, air resources were grounded, that changes our strategies and tactics. We called for the world in regard to the number of resources and what we needed, who we needed, immediate need. Every single resource that was available at that moment responded. You talked about 48 hours later, where are we now, right? Again, I already spoke on if we don't have water, we find water, we use water tenders, we draft water. The fire department, first responders, we're going to do everything in our absolute effort to do what we can do with what we've got. The good news is, with the wind subsiding, you're going to see water drops, you're going to see rotary, you're going to see fixed wings all day, unless something changes. Again, I did say 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts even today. So very, very dynamic situation. With that, also, you said about the other homes, no fire resources there. As winds change, our resources change, we redistribute, we move, and that's the dynamic situation that we are in even in day 3. That's what I wanted to say about that. Thank you.
Go right behind. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Madam Mayor, I have another question for you. Bob DeCastro over here from Good Day LA, Fox 11. Another issue, another concern about resources and in particular staffing as well. And we heard from firefighters even on the front lines expressing frustrations about, obviously it's a challenge right now. They're bringing in firefighters from all across the western region. But can you address the criticism now over the budget issue and the slashing, $17 million slashing
I think
of the budget?
if you go back and look at the reductions that were made, there were no reductions that were made that would have impacted the situation that we were dealing with over the last couple of days. And then there was a little bit of confusion because money was allocated to be distributed later on, which was actually going to support salaries and other parts of the fire department that were distributed a little later. So I think it's most important to understand that we were in tough budgetary times, everybody knew that, but that the impact of our budget really did not impact what we've been going through over the last few days. Again, back to the unprecedented windstorm, wind at such ferocity that we haven't seen in years, is the context in which we were dealing with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go over here on this side. Did you have your hand up with the blue? Name and media outlet, please.
Hi, Grace Tui with the Los Angeles Times. I was hoping Chief Crowley could talk a little bit more about the start of the Palisades fire. We'd heard that, I know we don't know why it started, but we'd heard that it started possibly in a garden in someone's backyard, if you could confirm that. And then how long do we know it took for it to actually reach homes? And I know you said that
resources were pre-deployed, but do we know were there actually fire crews in the Palisades when it did start?
Right. So I'll start with your second question, and we'll go back. I'll start with your first one. As for where the start of the fire was in the Palisades fire, again, currently under active investigation. We have our arson investigators that are out right now as we speak, and they are actively investigating. As soon as we have information, we will share that with all of you. I know there's obviously, for the right reasons, a lot of interest in that. So with that, we'll circle back. When we come to pre-deployment, yes, we have our local fire stations that are assigned, Fire Station 69, Fire Station 23 in the Palisades area. They were fully staffed. Also pre-deployment in those areas, and we can also share the exact locations of where they were, how much we bolstered in regard to resources in the Palisades area. And also, mind you, we pre-deploy in the very high fire hazard severity zones, knowing that those are the communities most at risk during a wind event. So not only did we pre-deploy in the Palisades area, but also in other critical areas within the city. I don't know exactly, but we certainly can get that to you. Thank you.
Hi, Dakota Smith with the LA Times. I have a two-part question again for the two fire chiefs. First off, have drones, unauthorized drones, been a problem, and have they hurt firefighting efforts? Secondly, in terms of the LAFD hydrants, was there any scaling back of the inspection of those hydrants in the last year and did that affect the firefighting effort to Chief Crowley?
Sure. So as for your first question with the drones, I don't have any information on that, so I can't share anything with you on that. In regard to the hydrants, historically, January is our hydrant testing phase. What I can tell you is we work closely with the Department of Water and Power. Those hydrants themselves are DWP's hydrants. They're to service the fire department. We partner with DWP in regard to that testing. Now, the very dynamic situation of where we are currently with the wildland season, if you may, there was a decision to postpone. We did not, in regard to the January start date, we have all year to test them. And also, mind you, our local fire stations are every single day going up and down the streets and looking at our hydrants. If there's any damage to hydrants, we report those as well. We were just kicking off that time frame of the beginning of the year when we normally would. What we did was postpone that until, because of the call volume that we're dealing with, and we're working closely with DWP at that point. I don't think it negatively impacted our abilities in this specific area. Thank you.
Thank you. And the third brother?
David Zahnizer with the Los Angeles Times. I have a two-part budget question. My first part is, can you talk about the reserve fund? Last year, there was a lot of concern that the reserve fund had fallen below 4% and was heading toward that 2.75 number that I think makes it difficult for the city to authorize spending. Do you know how low it has gotten at this point and how quickly you're burning through the reserve?
Do you want to go with your second question too?
Sure. The second question is, do you have any concern about blowing through the reserve before the state and federal money will arrive?
So let me just say that, as I said a few minutes ago, our number one priority right now is to save lives, to protect lives, to save homes. I'm not here to talk about the status of our budget. If you would like to do that on another occasion, that would be fine in terms of the reserve fund. I don't have those concerns right now, and I will say that after our first priority, then we will look back at everything that was done to do an evaluation to see what worked and what didn't work. Thank you.
Thank you. We are over time. However, we will have one-on-one interviews.
CAL FIRE wants to give an update on structures, et cetera, to get a clarification. I think it's important for you to highlight the numbers.
Excuse me. Good morning. My name is Todd Hopkins. I'm one of the incident commanders for the CAL FIRE incident management teams. Of the thousands of structures, I just want to clarify, that have been destroyed, we get this initial intel from intel flights, and what they do is they pick up heat signatures, and we base off those heat signatures an estimate of what structures are destroyed. What I want to clarify is that a structure it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a residential structure or a commercial structure. It could be a vehicle, it could be an outbuilding. So we do have people, damage inspection teams that are on the ground that will go out to every single home. They will catalog whether a house is destroyed, if it's partially destroyed or just damaged, and all that information will be turned over to the city and to the county once the damage inspection teams get done. So although we know that there are many homes destroyed, the thousands of structures can mean many different things besides just a home. So thousands of structures, yes, but that could be a motorhome, that could be a car, that could be a shed, it could be a residential structure. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
Thank you very much. And we are end of press conference, one-on-ones. We also have Spanish. We will conduct that over here to the side with Sheriff Luna and a representative from LA City Fire. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that. I think that was important to clarify.
Well, that is interesting information that just came out before you came back to us about the number of structures that were burned or destroyed. We were assuming structures were a home,
a business.
Turns out that structures can be considered cars, motorhomes. So we'll have to wait and see.
It really changes our understanding of the damage.
When they recalibrate everything.
But look at these views, though. It's massive.
It is.
It really is incredible.
The mayor was facing some really tough questions about the city's preparedness and response, and she said that when it's all said and done, they will assess their response and talk about it then. She didn't want to talk about it today, but did say that she was frustrated, but chose to focus on the unprecedented weather that hampered the firefight.
Right. She's taken a lot of heat because she was in Africa at the time of this. You know, what difference she could have made if she was here is debatable. I mean, it's not like she's going to be out there putting the fire out. But yeah, politically, it didn't look good that she wasn't here.
Yeah.
Next, we want to go to Scott Rife. We want to check in with him. Scott, can you tell us where you are? Are the fires still burning where you are?
Oh, the fires are still burning, but just moments ago we had the smoke clear, and what we're seeing is just heart-wrenching. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. I've covered the earthquakes, I've covered every fire here in Los Angeles for the last 40 years, and I've never seen this type of devastation. Now, this is off of Sunset and Temescal Canyon and Pacific Palisades, and look at this. I mean, war zone. It looks like a war zone. It looks like it was bombed. Every single home in this area is lost. You know, we got some numbers talking about thousands of homes lost, and we thought, well, maybe it'll be that high. It's certainly going to be that high. And all the way down to the left, all of those homes are lost, down to rubble, right down to the frame, all the way down to the shoreline. Now, there's still a lot of areas we can't see. This is the area of Pacific Palisades. That's Temescal Canyon. That's PCH right there. That would be basically on what we would call the southeast side of the Palisades, and then next starts Santa Monica, right? But everything is lost. That's the village in there. I think we can show you that. There's a few structures that made it in the village, the Palisades village, but a lot of them were just lost. Complete destruction. The fire went through here and took out just about everything. I tell you, we were astonished. We came around the hill out of Van Nuys Airport, and the smoke had just sort of drifted out to the west, and it allowed us to see this for the first time. And Marcel and I were talking. The only thing we've ever seen that compares to this would be pictures of paradise, and that we know how bad that fire was. So this is going to take forever to recover from. Now, in this area, we know we're not hearing about injuries, which is incredible, and we're not hearing about fatalities. The fatalities we heard about were the Eaton fire up in the Pasadena area. But can you imagine what it must have been like when the fire went down through here and took out every single house, and everybody scrambling to get out, and no one that we know of seriously injured or killed? That's a miracle in and of itself. But, you know, it's heart-wrenching. I look at this, and it's almost hard to believe.
It's hard to look at and hard to believe. You're right. I've never seen anything like it. It's just incredible.
And you got to feel for those people. And, you know, what happens is all these people have to find a place to stay. And it happened to me in the Woolsey fire. And I couldn't live at home. And then I couldn't find a hotel. Seriously, I had to drive all the way up almost to Palmdale to find a place to live and then drive back to go to work. And all these people have to go someplaces, so all the hotels would sell out. And this is going to take years to recover. This isn't going to recover in any short time. We'll be flying over this years from now, and you'll see some homes that are being rebuilt, like we saw in the big Malibu fire back in, I think it was 92. And then some homes, they didn't have the insurance and they weren't able to rebuild. Another thing that has been happening in the housing market, insurance rates have gone up so much. Mine went up like 5 times. That a lot of people couldn't afford good insurance. They had to have insurance in a lot of cases in order to keep their loan, but they'd go to Fair Plan and their home would only be maybe half or 1/3 insured. And in that case, you've lost all your equity in your home. So this is heart-wrenching. This is going to affect people, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people in this area. And like I said, it's going to take years and years to recover. This is a complete demolishment of this area of Pacific Palisades. It is basically all just wiped off the map.
Unreal.
And Scott, did you hear the CAL FIRE spokesperson talking about how they assess damage? He mentioned they include vehicles in their damage assessment. Does that change anything from your perspective? I mean, when you look at this devastation, it's clearly over 1,000 structures, I would say, right?
Oh, yeah. Initially, the 1,000, sometimes these numbers come out, and we get them, and then we really try and confirm them, and we'll say 1,000 structures, maybe 300 homes. That's what I was reporting earlier this morning, because we really hadn't seen it, and it's not the fire department and the police department's job to go out there and start counting. But now that we've got to look at this, 1,000 is probably a conservative estimate. I wouldn't be surprised if it's much more than that. And then I did hear in the press conference something about the biggest natural disaster ever, and I thought to myself, wow, it's got to be pretty big to be bigger than the Northridge earthquake, because, the Santa Monica Freeway collapsed, the 14 collapsed, an apartment building in the Northridge area collapsed and killed a lot of people, and everything in the San Fernando Valley had to be rebuilt. But I do believe this is going to be a bigger disaster as far as the cost to recover from this. Certainly not as far as lives are concerned, because I don't remember the number, but it might have been 12 to 15 that were lost in that apartment building on Tampa, I believe, up in Northridge after the Northridge earthquake. But as far as recovering from this and the price tag, obviously in the billions, we'll find out how many billions, but I really feel for the people, because a lot of these people may not recover from this.
Yeah, Scott, you were referring to LA Fire Chief Kristen Crowley calling the Palisades fire the most destructive natural disaster in the history of LA. She did say that in the news conference. Is there any way, Scott, that you can focus in on the village area of Palisades?
I think we're over it right there. I think that is the village right there, if I'm not mistaken. Marcel, can you bring up Sky Map real quick? I think that's going to be Sunset and then Temescal. There's Sophomore. There's Temescal Canyon. So I believe that is the village right there. I believe that is the village, if I'm not mistaken. And you could tell some of it's standing, but the majority of those businesses in there have been lost.
Okay, Scott, can you hang with us? Hang tight for a second. We want to now go back to that news conference. Our reporter Josh Haskell asked Mayor Bass a question. Take a listen.
Josh Haskell, ABC 7 Eyewitness News. Mayor Bass, I've been on the fire lines the last 2 days. I've never seen firefighters this desperate. At fire hydrants, water not coming out, the pressure so low, the #1 tool that they use to fight these fires, not there. How frustrated are you about that? And also, I'm getting texts right now from the Palisades Highlands community. We're almost 48 hours after this fire started. There's not resources up there. The hydrants aren't working. Where's the National Guard? Where are miles and miles of water tenders? How are we addressing this?
Well, first of all, you asked me, was I frustrated by this? Of course, because we all know that this has been an unprecedented event. We also know that fire hydrants are not constructed to deal with this type of massive devastation, and that the #1 problem, especially on Wednesday, was the fact that we weren't able to do the air support because of the winds. And so, of course, I am absolutely frustrated by that. I am not sure that is correct, that there are no resources up there, but rest assured, as soon as we are done here, I will follow up on that.
But those homes, the first day and a half, there were homes up there that had been protected by the fire. And then I went up there yesterday and there were
that had been protected?
That it basically had been saved. Obviously, the fire's moving different directions, but when I went up there yesterday, there were not a lot of resources. We drove around, and then I know that things got worse up there. I'm just wondering, now that we move 48 hours past, how are we addressing these water problems that are continuing, and is it acceptable that they continue?
Well, let me just say that the water problems are a little better now because the winds are such that we can go up and have the air support. And you know that that was the reason that the devastation was so bad, the unprecedented wind, the strength of the wind, and the fact that the air support could not go up. Thank you.
And the Department of Water and Power has said that demand was so high in that area during the height of the fire, they just couldn't keep up. They were pumping water in, they couldn't keep up. That's their official statement. Obviously, we're going to be hearing more about this in the future. We want to talk to Leslie Lopez now about the current conditions. The winds gave us a little break earlier this morning.
They did give us a break, and I wish it was a longer break. You can see that some of the winds are still around, certainly here in Southern California, shifting off towards the Inland Empire. And yes, we're going to see the winds continue forward. So you are looking at right now a Riverside camera that is just moving around erratically here, about 68 degrees right now in Riverside. Some of the wind gusts are getting up to about 20, 30, and they're going to continue in some higher elevations to about 60 miles per hour. So still not out of the question to get that high wind warning staying in effect today through tomorrow. And the haze out into areas of Southern California, especially against the foothills, Burbank, near Glendale, Pasadena, Altadena, out towards Los Angeles, the LA City limits. You're looking at a lot of this haze sticking around. Air quality is poor, terrible, hazardous. And so we've been hearing from officials also saying, please stay indoors. Not only is this hazardous for sensitive groups, but this is also hazardous for all groups. This is the type of particulate matter that is floating in the air that if you should breathe it, it could result in respiratory issues that could be life-threatening, especially if you already have a pre-existing condition, any comorbidity. So please just try to stay indoors today. You can see the air quality map here. Anything in that dark purple color or red, I mean, this is really where the worst air quality is remaining. You're outside of the zone of the fires, and you're back to good air quality in Orange County and our Inland Empire. But again, this is really a large, huge populated area dealing with some very, very poor air quality across Southern California. And unfortunately, we have to update that the red flag warning is now going to be extended off into Friday at 6 p.m. It was due to expire today, but now it has been extended, and a high wind warning has now also been issued for the Orange County and Inland Empire locations because the winds have shifted in that direction. And now we're talking about more of a traditional Santa Ana wind event, the one that has just passed, the one that brought us these erratic winds out of the north. Again, these were very unusual winds for Southern California, especially if you're in the San Gabriel Valley communities, anywhere from Burbank out towards Claremont even. You're looking at some of those very strong gusty winds that produced howling winds that once the fire broke out, it was like a blowtorch right through the Altadena area. I mean, this is the type of wind event that we can consider historic, unprecedented. This is the area that we don't often ever see winds. In fact, let me give you a historic figure just to place it in perspective. Burbank Airport hit a wind velocity of 82 miles per hour overnight before the fire broke out, or right when the fire broke out. So, I mean, these were the winds that we were dealing with in that particular area. Then we have our Santa Ana wind corridor, which traditionally gets hit with Santa Anas that come out of the northeast. So again, that's places like Malibu, Pacific Palisades. We still have those winds going today up against the foothill communities, moving down into the Inland Empire. So today you can really consider this more of a traditional Santa Ana and not the wide, large area that yesterday's winds were encompassing. So now we're backing off on how big of a territory the winds are covering, but you can see that certainly the air quality across a huge populated area, this is an LAX camera right now, is very much affected. Now you're going to see some winds flare up today. I know that's the big concern. How soon will the winds pick back up? Looks like we're going to see the winds pick up specifically for the Palisades area, part of that Santa Ana wind corridor, overnight. So again, tonight winds begin to increase, and this is where the firefight is going to get tough again. We don't anticipate as much aerial support when the overnight hours come around, when the sun goes down. So unfortunately, that is going to be a factor too, likely. And then also into the Eaton fire, you have some winds calming down over into, it looks like the next few hours, but again, increasing some as we're getting back into those late overnight hours and early morning hours. We have some winds again today, still continuing forward, but again, increasing and becoming a little bit more widespread throughout the Inland Empire later today. Again, that's why that high wind warning is in effect effect in those areas and Orange County. And then high pressure, well, this is coming back into focus, and this is what's going to be building in for the west, but it's going to be the area of low pressure that brought in the erratic wind behavior that has already moved out of the way. So this is gone and out of here. That's why I do anticipate that places that usually don't experience Santa Anas, like Pasadena, the San Gabriel area, valley communities, you'll get back towards what you would traditionally expect out of a Santa Ana wind event, which is you're not impacted very much. So the hope is that that really helps firefighters get a handle on the fire that's burning in the Altadena area. However, for the Palisades, unfortunately, you are in that Santa Ana wind corridor, and so the winds will be picking up tonight for you, and that could become more of an issue overnight. Now, new out of the National Oceanic Atmospheric Association this morning, we are in a La Nina officially. That's a La Nina pattern officially. The reason why that's important for Southern California, even though we kind of knew that was going to be the case, I mean, listen, we are here in Southern California, we'll feel the effects of La Nina before it's officially announced La Nina. The reason being, we're just in a very sensitive location to dry weather. So when those equator temperatures begin to shift and we start to see that cooling in the equatorial region of their waters, we experience dry weather, while the Pacific Northwest experience heavy amounts of rainfall. We've already been seeing that for the last couple of months. So again, this is not a surprise that we'll be officially in a La Nina pattern, which now also puts us in a drought situation that has been elevated this morning too. Our drought is now at a severe category. That's new. And here we go with another opportunity for some windy weather all the way through tomorrow. It's been very dry. So the red flag warning is continuing through tomorrow. And then we see a break Saturday and Sunday. It's a short-lived break, but it is a break, and hopefully that is assistance to firefighters. And then we're back to Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday as new Santa Anas and more traditional Santa Anas roll through the region. Tuesday, unfortunately, looks like this might be elevated to a strong Santa Ana, and I'm hoping we can stay away from an extreme Santa Ana, but some modeling is now elevating that strength, and unfortunately, of course, that puts all of us on high alert. And too soon, to this last event that has just rolled through. I can say this will not be as strong as this event that has just passed. We just don't have that area of low pressure that brought in those erratic winds. But we certainly do have enough of an area of high pressure to bring in a strong category at this point for Santa Ana to develop. The beach is back to 68, overnight lows into the 40s, down to 62 as we're heading into your Sunday. Your Monday, the winds will pick up. Very cold mornings, possibly for the San Fernando Valley on Monday morning. And the mountains, 42. We're going to see those overnight lows also dip quite well. If you're out towards the mountains, 39 degrees for the mountains by Monday and Tuesday. And we'll see some significant wind out towards some of our mountains. And then we head out the door for the high desert, 64, overnight lows into the 20s and the 30s. And here we go with a cold pattern. And we are all expecting and really hoping that the next few Santa Anas that roll through the area will not be as advertised. I mean, that would be the hope. And, all our hearts go out to so many people. Watching these images this morning, just so hard to digest. I'm certain a lot of us are having a hard time. We'll send it back over your way. Let's see John and Rachel.
All right, it really is, Lopez. And as you said that, it looks like we were zooming in on what appears to be a school. Scott Reif and AIR7 at HD. Scott, we know that Palisades High School was burned. Palisades Elementary School, Marquez Elementary. What was that you were zooming into, you think?
That's Palisades High School. I mean, it doesn't look like it was completely lost, but certainly there's several buildings that have been destroyed there. I can't, really impress upon you much as possible. It's hard to describe the destruction down here. I mean, it's just so devastating. I didn't think this was going to happen. We came up over the hill, the smoke cleared, and what we're seeing down here is like destruction on a scale that we've never seen anything close to this. Not the 92 earthquake, nothing like this. Pan to the left, that I believe is the village. That looks like the Gelsons. That is lost. And as we open up on the bottom of your screen, every single home for the most part is lost. Thousands of homes, and it extends all the way down to the shoreline. It's absolutely devastating. It is going to take years for people to recover from this and to rebuild their homes. It's really going to be a disaster that we're going to be talking about and feeling in Los Angeles for years and years to come. All the way down to the peninsula, that is PCH and Temescal Canyon. All those homes were lost. We're checking on some of the schools schools. We wanted to look at Palisades Elementary, but I want to pan up to the right and show you the Brentwood area. We do know the helicopters are starting to make some drops once again, and this is Brentwood right there on the right side of the screen. That would be the western portion of Brentwood, and you can see right down in that ravine, the red line, that's the FOS check, and see how that FOS check stopped the fire from spreading up and over the hill. And that is what the air tankers do. They drop down retardant, stops the fire from spreading into the areas they're concerned about, but there's still a lot of concern with this. Right now the winds are calm, but if we get a huge wind gust or we get a huge change in the winds and it starts to burn down towards this area, you can tell those homes in there are impossible to protect. There's no way you're going to save those if we start to get those 70, 80-mile-an-hour winds once again. So we're really at the mercy of Mother Nature right now. But the devastation here is just difficult to describe. We use things like war zone. This really looks like a war zone. It looks like bombs were dropped on this entire neighborhood. And unfortunately, there's still a large area to the west up towards Malibu that we just can't see yet because of the smoke. Let me give you a wide shot and give you a little perspective. We're basically over the 405 freeway at Getty Center Drive, and we're looking to the west, right along the shoreline. That area of Palisades is lost, but there's a lot of homes lost underneath all the smoke that we have not been able to get to. But once again, it's just heart-wrenching. I mean, these people, thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of people, if you figure out how many are in each one of these homes, tens of thousands at least, don't have a home to come back to, and they have to find a place to go. And I mentioned the issue with the insurance industry. That is a huge deal as well. A lot of these folks may not have been insured or fully insured, and you could lose your life savings in a situation like this.
And Scott, we're talking about the Palisades fire and the complete devastation you're showing us, and we're not even touching on the Eaton fire yet, which may be almost as terrible, it sounds like.
It could be. You know, we tried to get up in there. We flew to the Eaton fire first, and that's basically up to in the Pasadena area, up in the mountains along Pasadena. It came down through Altadena, and it was just too smoky. What happened with the Eaton fire, it's consuming a lot of acreage to the north, up in the Angeles National Forest, that really thick brush and that steep terrain. And as that burns and the wind blows from the north to the south, all the smoke is hanging down over Pasadena and Altadena, and we just couldn't get in there to really get a look. And initially, when we took off out of Van Nuys, I think it was around 8:30 this morning, we couldn't see any of this, and all of a sudden the wind shifted a little bit, and then, you know, to our dismay, all of a sudden this was actually exposed to us, this devastation here in Palisades. I think I heard Josh Haskell mentioned on one of his reports that they may have lost 50 to 70% of the Palisades, and I thought, wow, really? And now that I look at this, that could be correct.
And Scott, in the news conference, Mayor Bass warned Angelenos to proceed with caution as air and ground firefighting efforts continue. Other public officials are also warning about touching debris and drinking tap water in these impacted areas. From your view, are you seeing a lot of people coming back to these devastated neighborhoods to survey the damage?
No, I'm really not. In a situation like this, once you've been evacuated, the Sheriff's Department or the Police Department, whether Santa Monica PD is helping out, they're just not letting anyone back into this area. They're just not going to let you back in. I mean, basically, there's the threat of winds kicking up once again and then fire moving back through this area. They don't want anyone in their way. They won't even let you in. If you say, I need to get to medicine or something like that, in some situations they may, if it's clear. But if they say you have a family member, they'll go up and they'll try and get the family member. They usually don't let the residents go back up into that area. So we're not really seeing anything of that nature, people trying to get back into this area, because for the most part, law enforcement has just shut it down.
And Scott, were you able to see any aircraft in the area? I know you can see the smoke in the distance and some hot spots, but are there aircraft fighting the fire?
There are 7 helicopters fighting the fire right now. Most of those helicopters, though, are on the other side. They're on the Malibu side. And what you can see here, there's really not much of a threat to this area any longer. It's just gone. Every single home is gone, and the fire is burning up in the hillside. You've got that little speck of fire there, and that is burning towards the Brentwood area. And then the helicopters, tilt up, Marcel, the helicopters are up in that area on the other side of the smoke, and they're making drops. But we saw this devastation right here, and we started to cover that. We think the tankers will be in pretty soon. And Marcel actually went to the Paradise Fire. I looked at this, and I thought, I've never seen anything like like this except for the pictures that I saw from the Paradise Fire. Marcel was at the Paradise Fire, and he said this is worse. So that really gives you some sort of basis on how bad this is.
Yeah, and Scott, I don't know anybody who's covered more Santa Ana fires than you, and you're in the air a lot for these things. Can you talk about the conditions yesterday? Local leaders obviously taking a lot of heat about the response, but talk about those winds and what it means to try and fight a fire in conditions like that.
Yeah, the winds were much too high for the aircrafts to be effective and much too high for the risk to try and get out here and fly. And a lot of helicopters have you can't start the helicopter at a certain airspeed because the blades will come down and hit the boom. So they have a restriction on starting the helicopter. Not so much you're worried about once you're in the air, but you can't start it and shut it down safely. And for that reason, you don't get out and fly. But we did talk to one of the Chinook pilots and who'd made a drop, who tried to get out in this, and he said the winds were so high they were just unsuccessful. They weren't making any progress. They couldn't drop the water where they needed it. There was too much smoke. It was too dangerous, and they decided not to fly. So over the years, definitely the Santa Anas I've seen, many occasions we've gone back to the airport and landed. It was just too much. A couple occasions I was flying in the gimbal. The gimbal wouldn't even work. It wouldn't even keep our shot steady. I give you an idea how bad it was. But this was certainly one of the worst I've ever seen. The wind gust up to 80 miles an hour, and you just can't fly in those. The helicopters can't be successful if they do try and make a water drop. The big tankers, obviously, that can fly, the helitankers in weather a little stronger than we can. And then, of course, the aircrafts, the airplanes, which are so effective in stopping a fire from spreading, they can't fly at anything close to those types of speeds with the wind.
And Scott, it was more than disappointing to learn from LA County Sheriff Robert Luna that 20 people in the county have been arrested for looting thus far.
Yeah.
We know that police are now stepping up patrols in a number of neighborhoods. Where you are, though, sadly, it looks like it's a total loss.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, I don't. Looting in this area would almost be nonsense. It seems to me like the Sheriff's Department has everything cut off. They're not letting anyone in this area, even if you have an ID that says you live up in here, they're not going to let you back in. That's just the way it goes. And if you do sneak in, you're going to be caught. I mean, trust me, you're going to be caught no matter what. It's dark here, though. You have to understand there's no power, there's no lights in this area. So once we get towards nighttime, certainly this area is somewhat susceptible to people trying to sneak in. But there's really no reason. You will be caught. They're looking for you. And it's sad that even happens, that somebody's trying to, take advantage of someone else's, devastation like this.
Yeah, you have to wonder if there's a celebrity factor to that, because a lot of celebrities live in this area and a lot of people know they live in that area. And you have to wonder if maybe people think, oh, I'm going to go in there and get some jewelry or something. But to have 20 people arrested for looting in such a short period of time is pretty dramatic. I can't recall it happening in those numbers so quickly.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, it's a very affluent area, right? And I think that is part of it. As you said, celebrities, people that have a lot of money. These homes are worth millions of dollars. And so I think that may be part of it. They're thinking there might be something to get in there and steal. But, they're going to catch you. You're not going to get away with it. You're not going to get away with anything. That's the fire station, I believe, and they were able to save that, fortunately. But almost every structure around the fire station here off of Sunset in the Palisades has been lost. But certainly, 20 is a huge number to happen that quickly. But it's also evident that the Sheriff's Department's out there and they're looking for you. And, you just can't drive into this area. Every single vehicle that drives into this area will be stopped.
Wow.
And Scott, we were talking about the weather conditions. Leslie Lopez indicating winds might be picking up again. What are you seeing right now out there?
Yeah, right now we don't see much in the way of winds. It is relatively calm. There's a little breeze out of the north, which is pretty typical. Certainly if the winds kick up once again, everything is going to change, and it's going to change very, very quickly. But right now the winds are calm, and this is the time when firefighters can really start to make some, get on top of getting around this fire a little bit and maybe make some progress on containment. Now, containment is a long, long ways away, but at least they can start to set up their battle lines, and this is what we're going to protect. We know the winds are coming. They're really good, at the most part, for picking up what is going to be in the wake of the fire when the winds do kick back up. But there's a hot spot right there. You can see that. Fire crews will probably be on that pretty quickly. And the real issue is, as a firefighter, the real issue is when you have a hot spot like that and there's no wind, it's not much to worry about. But if we had 60, 70 mile an hour winds, that would catch the tree on fire, and then it would spread to other homes. But we only see, go to the right a little bit there, Marcel. It's very seldom we see a home or two that hasn't been lost. Almost all of the homes in here are lost. So it's you know, you wonder why, but hopscotch from house to house, why one home was saved and another wasn't. Just luck of the draw, I guess. But really, when we look at this area, 95% of the homes are gone.
It is just incredible to see. It's just, and you can imagine the survivor's guilt that homeowners have when their home was saved and then all of their neighbors' homes have been burned to the ground. Scott, we're going to move on over to Mark Cotorolis really quickly. He's at the Eaton fire. Mark, as the sun is coming up, what can you tell us?
More of the devastation, Leslie. Good morning again to you. We are just off of Altadena Drive, and when you live in a community, sometimes you know some of the fire victims, and one of those is Yalda Cease here, her husband Walter. They're walking up right now. We just spoke. Yalda is a fitness coach here in Pasadena in the San Gabriel Valley, and Walter, we just met.
Yep.
Your home here behind us, or what was your home, and we just went through the emotional story. Share that for our viewers on what you're dealing with right now.
Just trying to process, honestly. It's so surreal. Walking away last night or the 2 nights ago, I can't even remember, didn't think that it was going to be something we weren't going to come back to. So just being here now in the middle of it, it's hitting really hard, and trying to figure out what our next steps are. There's so many people in the same situation as we are, friends that I know, just people or maybe I don't know, and it's just, how do I help them? How do we get through it? But yeah, that's basically it. Yeah.
And Walter, when you guys were here the night of the fire, you have had winds before, but really nothing like what we saw that night.
No, they were definitely on a scale that we've never seen before. Like you said, we're used to winds here in Altadena because of the Santa Anas, and they get up 40, 50 miles an hour, and that does quite a bit of destruction in your backyard. But what we saw with the fire and everything, it was just unbelievable. It felt like it was going to rip the roof right off. It was that bad. And then when the fire started, and it came so fast, it took 30 minutes from it to be at the top of the ridge up there to be blowing sparks in the back of my house. It's just devastating.
You were watching your Ring camera. You had firefighters in your front yard.
Yes. We actually have a fire hydrant right up the top of our property. So we're thinking, okay, they can hook up to that and protect our house. But they tried. It was just so bad with the winds that there was pretty futile. You watched them in the yard, working on the fire that was in the front of the yard, hoping it wouldn't go to the house. And then they put it down pretty good, and then they left. And then the wind came up, and it just came right back up and just kept burning. And then about a little after midnight, the flames came right up over, and the Ring went dead.
Yalda, your whole career is about building people up.
That's right.
Building that strength. How do you find that for yourself?
I'll definitely draw off of that. That is who I am, and we'll get through this. I know we will. It's going to be hard. I've never been in a situation like this before, and trying to think about what the process is, what do I go through. But I'm going to, draw from my community and get back into my work. And I'm so blessed that my family is safe, the people who are the most important to me, and because that is my philosophy and that is who I am, we'll figure it out. Walt and I will figure it out, and we'll rebuild this, and it'll take some time, but we're gonna do it.
You have 3 adult kids, only one of which currently lives at home. But your daughter, who's out of the house, she stopped by just as the fire was getting started. You all got out with the 2 dogs.
Yes, we did. She had a feeling. She said, she actually drove up Altadena and saw the fire as it was starting before it even got to the point where it did. And she called us and said, hey, there's a fire coming up. And they were like first responders that were here were trying to keep her from coming up. And she had to tell them, hey, that's where I live. She felt like she needed to be with us. So I'm so thankful that we were all together. I have a son who's working out of town and then another one who lives in a different part of California, but so she was with us. The dogs, we just packed everybody up together, and it was good to have her here with us. She was a great help.
What the camera can't see is on the corner, on all three other corners, the homes are still standing. Yeah. When you see that, and that you were the home here in this area that's gone.
Again, there's no rhyme or reason to it, so that's the part where I have to process through. I don't understand. I mean, it's the wind. It's just the way that how it was done.
Because if you look, 3 houses in a row burned. Ours being the third one, 2 above us, and then the one right below us, the house is still standing. Just their backyard got a little bit burned. So, like she said, it's the wind. There's no rhyme or reason. It's just no logical explanation other than it just blew those embers and jumped over houses and landed on other houses.
And we were talking before we came on here, not only the homes and the neighbors, but also the business district. And people who have businesses over near the hardware store, and to know that all of that is gone as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a friend of my daughter's. She has a business and her home. She lost both. Yes. I can't imagine that. I mean, we have our businesses and the places that we work, and we can still do that. And we helped us rebuild. But that poor lady, she lost her main source of income, and she lost the place that she lives. She needs help more than anybody.
And you guys just went through what's left in the rubble, just looking through, didn't find anything, right?
Well, everything that we did find, it's either broken, destroyed, or,
weakened. Or
but seeing it in this state, it's just, like I said, it's surreal. I never would have fathomed seeing something like this. It's just incredible. What fire does is destruction. It's just I can't even. The car, it's like it's a shell of itself. It wasn't even.
Yeah, it was
melted down. But again, material things, and I feel like with community and family, we'll rebuild for sure. It'll take time, and I'm sure I'll have hard days. Everybody will, but all we can do, right? We just ask God to help us, and we'll get through it.
Like so many people, you need that support. Your sister started to GoFundMe. I shared it to my Instagram page, so we have the link there to get that support, to know that there is that support, that there are people behind you.
And to see so many people, I mean, I don't even know most of them, and they're just, posting and out of the kindness of their hearts, they're helping, and it means so much to us. It's just incredible. It really is. Yeah.
Well, you've made an impact on me. I've known you now for a few years, and you're one of a kind.
Thank you.
What a heart, and you're one of the good ones, and Walt as well, to meet you, and so sorry everything you guys have gone through.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it,
what next? You're at a hotel, and it's packed.
It is packed, and we come down. We were coming on our way to here to meet you, and just seeing others, who are in the same situation as us, sitting there with no place else to go because, they have to figure it out. So it's a hotel for a little bit, and, figure out the rest as we go. Yeah.
If you could talk to the firefighters that were in the front yard on the Ring camera, what would you say to those firefighters?
When it was happening, we were praying for them that they'd be safe. Yes. And what brave men to see the firestorm they were working through. And it was like they were just doing the job on any old day. And those guys are amazing. Our hats off, and we thank you and we bless you. We pray that the Lord protects you, whatever you have to fight.
Yes, absolutely.
Walter and y'all deceased, thank you so much for taking the time. It took a lot of it, but we appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll send it back to you guys. Again, just one of the hundreds of stories here between Pasadena and Altadena from the Eaton fire. We'll send it back to you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Mark. We want to mention in the news conference the Eaton fire is still at 10,600 acres, and officials said that though we do have the number 5 people are dead, that may not be the final tally. They're going to bring in the canines to sift through the rubble, and they imagine that unfortunately that number will increase. So we will be waiting to hear about that. Right now, we are joined by World News Tonight anchor David Muir, who arrived here yesterday to report on the fire in the Pacific Palisades. Tell us a little bit about what you've experienced.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I always hate when I come to town and it's bad news. You know, I love Southern California. And by the way, the entire team here at KABC, I know you guys have been on around the clock. You've done extraordinary work. You don't need me to tell you that, but I've been watching you as much as I can. Well, we've covered so many wildfires, and you all have too, and you live here and you know this, but it's very striking when you're out there in the field on this one. It's very different. You travel from community to community, from neighborhood to neighborhood, and homes are gone in neighborhood after neighborhood, you know, and I think in previous wildfires, you'll have sort of a hot spot that then grows and you have loss, and it's heartbreaking in a certain area. Here, as you drive around the Pacific Palisades, which we're now seeing these extraordinary aerial images that just basically look like it's been wiped out, and in many ways it has. I think we're talking about thousands and thousands of structures. I know they haven't given an official toll there yet. But when you drive down the Pacific Coast Highway, and I was in the Palisades villages, as you call it, the little town square there, it's completely gone. We did the broadcast from there last night, and I knew as we were standing there that typically people would be having dinner, going shopping, and it looks like, I hate to say this, but it looks like an awful movie set, like as though many of these neighborhoods have been bombed, like there's been an aerial assault. And so my heart goes out to everybody out there. I know what's been remarkable about this, the heroism of the firefighters and the first responders, when you think about how little life has been lost. I mean, any life is too many lives to lose. But when you look at this kind of devastation, and the death toll is where it is, that's extraordinary work on the first responders and the people of Southern California who know this, they've lived this, they heed the warnings, and this time it was just very, very true what was coming.
And I understand, David, you at one point caught in the evacuation warnings, had to maybe leave your hotel?
Yeah, you know, last night after we did World News Tonight, we were going to stay in Hollywood, then the Sunset Fire broke out, and what a difference just 24 hours makes when you can get up into the air and drop water, right? I know the winds made it almost impossible the day before to get up at all. And so many of these fires were then unleashed and allowed to go because you just couldn't put people's lives at risk by putting them up in the air. Last night, just the difference of 24 hours, being able to get above it and drop water on it and try to knock it down. We didn't even actually get to the hotel. We pulled into the parking lot and people were running from the hotel, and you could just see it in their faces, and there was a traffic jam already going in all directions. And we ended up staying in Santa Monica last night. Obviously, we're remembering 39th President Carter today, too, so we actually anchored from here in the building with you all for that, and now we'll go back out in the field and survey what we're seeing. And we plan to go to the Palisades to see what you're all seeing right now in these aerials, but also some of the other fires and regions that have been really hit hard here.
And David, the world is watching Los Angeles right now. Can you just speak to the resiliency that you've seen and witnessed?
Well, I think it's extraordinary. The people have lost their entire homes, where they've raised their children, where they've raised their grandchildren, all of their belongings, their photographs, their mementos. I saw the cars in the Pacific Palisades that have been left in the road, people with a fire on top of them, essentially, and they got out of the cars and left. The cars are now melted metal right on the road. They use the bulldozers to get them out of the way. And so when you see again how many people actually did survive this, who are saying we will rebuild, who are saying, you know, I've got my family and my grandchildren, and I checked on my neighbor next door and the person across the street. Those are the stories that always sit with me, and we're only a day and a half into this, and how many stories have we heard about people who checked on the person across the street, and because of that, they were helped too. I think that's going to be, you know, sadly, one of the great lasting legacies of this horrific story that we're all living through right here in Southern California right now is just how giving the people of Southern California are. You know, they did race to safety, but they didn't do it without checking on the neighbor first. And I think that speaks volumes.
How long are you expected to be here?
You know, I don't know. We're going to do the broadcast tonight, so I think we're moving right now our location to some of the areas that now have been revealed of just how widespread the damage was. I mean, just given the smoke, we really didn't have a clear, and you all have been on the air 24/7, a real clear eye of just how many homes have been lost. And I think that we're going to hear by day's end here some numbers that are going to be truly staggering, unfortunately.
This is our first real view ourselves of the area from the air, and it is staggering. I've never seen anything like it. Scott Reif, who has covered probably hundreds of these fires, has never seen anything like it. It's pretty shocking to see a whole neighborhood's gone like this.
You know, I will say Bob Iger, who is our boss here at ABC and Disney, of course, been the CEO here for a very long time, returning. But his heart is in news, as you know, and his heart is here in Southern California. And he came to World News Tonight to the scene yesterday afternoon to survey what we were seeing for himself. And one of the things he talked about, and I think this is what you hear from everyone, that if you didn't lose your home, you were able to look out from your home and see others who were in immediate danger. And so everyone felt that here in Southern California. That's one other thing I think about this particular event, because there were a multitude of fires and you could see them out every window from every neighborhood, that there was real concern for your fellow neighbor, your fellow member of this community. And I think in looking back on this, we will all remember it as having covered it, but for people like Bob and all of you who live here, who've raised your families here, to look out from your own windows and see people, you know, within eyesight who are in desperate need and wondering if they're going to have a home to go home to is something I don't think people will ever forget here.
And you've been around the world covering disasters, and this is our worst natural disaster here.
Yeah, the Palisades will go down as, if not the worst, one of the worst natural disasters ever in California. They're already saying that without even having the definitive numbers yet. And so I bet you're right, Leslie. I bet it will go down as the worst. And we have been to war zones all over the world, and I hate to compare it to a war zone, but as you're driving around, just the level of destruction, you can't help but to think, this looks a lot like what we've seen all over the world in very different circumstances, but the level of loss here. But luckily, the kind of loss we're talking about is material.
Right.
I'm not making light of that at all, because people, it's hard enough in this economy for so many people, and to lose their home and wonder how they're going to get, what the next steps are, right? Let alone how they're going to do this a year from now with whatever the situation is. But thankfully, we're talking about material loss and not human loss to a huge degree, just given the fact that we're looking at these aerials now, John, as you say, for the first time. When you look at something like that, that speaks to major, major loss of human life, and luckily we're not seeing those kinds of numbers yet. And that, in the end, would be one of the true blessings here in this. If we get through this, and we're talking about helping our neighbors rebuild, and as still as low a loss of life as possible.
And again, it's incredible that nobody was lost at Palisades when you look at that destruction. And there are only like 2 roads in and out of that area. Just everybody was able to get out safely. Eaton, of course, a different situation, but even there, a lot of people very lucky to get out without being harmed.
But you don't know anyone, right, here in Southern California? I have a lot of friends here, a lot of loved ones here in Southern California. It is impossible to dial up a friend or a loved one and not know someone who knows someone who's lost a home, right? Even here at ABC.
We were all talking about that this morning.
Yeah, somebody, we all know people who've lost homes, who've lost the school where they went to elementary school or where they take their kids to school, the community center, the place where they used to have their Italian dinner. You know, I just, all of these traditions, all of these cherished places will have to be rebuilt. And I think it's a little hard to focus on that right now, still in the middle of this and in the thick of it all. But I have a feeling that the people of South California are going to prove once again that they are, you know, they are as strong or stronger than most of us.
That's right. We'll be covering those stories each step of the way. World News Tonight. David Muir, thank you so much
Leslie,
for coming, and we look forward to what you're going to report on out there today and in the days to come.
I don't know how you all look like this after having no sleep. You still look a heck of a lot better.
We can't tell you our secrets.
We're not giving away. Oh, it's time to wake up.
That's the phone, exactly, that says I haven't slept in days. Anyway, thanks for having me here on the set with you guys. Really, really great seeing you.
Thank you.
Okay. We now go to Tony Cabrera live in Malibu.
Hey guys, I mean, David, he just put it so well with his words. I mean, just how he himself went through and saw the destruction, saw how bad it was, and that was us yesterday. We were going through Pacific Palisades, driving street by street, and we saw home after home after home, street after street after street, business after business that was affected by this and burned to the ground. Now, Scott Reif in AIR7 was above it earlier, and he showed the destruction the first time really seeing Pacific Palisades. But he said there was a cloud of ash, of smoke that was still covering parts of it, including where I am. This is the Malibu coast. And let me move out of the way here, because there are lines of homes here, also off of PCH, that are destroyed. They're burnt to the ground. But there are small clusters like this one here, where there's still actually structures standing. The ones that you see out there earlier, we just saw some embers that were, lit up a little bit, but then it really picked back up in the last 30 minutes or so, and now we have firefighters from El Segundo that are here helping try to put this out. And you can see them, they're trying to put out these hot spots, because even though these two homes in front of us are still standing, they are destroyed, but to the left of all of this, there's a little street where there are 4 homes still standing, and this is Topanga Beach Drive. It's a private road here where there are 4 homes that were fortunately not affected by these fires, but we talked to 2 residents that live here. They went past the barricades themselves to try to protect these 4 homes, and by doing so, they've used these hoses like you're seeing. They're actually here assisting the firefighters, but they've used these hoses, their own hoses even, to try to douse the embers that are inside the homes that have already been affected by the fire that you're seeing directly in front of you there. We spoke to 2 of the men. One of the guys, he's lived here 40 plus years. The other guy's lived here about 20 years. One of the guys' names is John Turtletaub. He is from Malibu here on this street. He's actually a film director and producer, and he told us about the experience driving in when it was dark, heading into the streets of Malibu off of PCH. Here's what he said.
As I'm coming down the middle of the night, no lights, I didn't know where it was on PCH because all of the landmarks are gone. You don't know what street you've crossed. You don't know which house you've passed. It's just done. It's all done. Let's see, you feel a little guilty if your house is still standing, kind of, but you're also happy, and it's not the house, it's just stuff in your house. And it's the house. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, are these houses going to stay? This is the only houses. And where do people go to school? And we spend our lives in the Palisades. There are no Palisades. It's done. And I don't know what you do.
How much do you think is gone, between Palisades and here, this portion of Malibu? How much of that would you say is gone?
80%. I keep hearing in the news 1,000 structures destroyed. It's got to be 5 times that. And I don't know why they keep staying on that number. If you look just at what we call the alphabet streets and all that flat area around the Palisades, there's 1,000 homes right there. And there are no homes there. Pacific Palisades right now could just be taken off the map. There is no Pacific Palisades.
Very strong, emotional words coming from John, talking about this area that he loves so much. And those emotions of, feeling guilty, but also lucky at the same time, still having his house, looking down PCH and seeing dozens of homes just burnt to the ground, really. Oceanfront property right here. And he also mentioned Pacific Palisades, an area that he himself, loves to go eat out at restaurants and go visit friends and everything, just gone and off the map, he said. So that's the story here on the Malibu side of things and into Pacific Palisades, where there is just so much, as you heard with David Muir, so much is gone. And with Scott Reif showing the view from up above, and once the clouds are gone, once the smoke is gone, the ash, we should be getting a better idea of what that true number is. Josh Haskell, our reporter, he grew up in Pacific Palisades. He thinks it's like 50 to 70% gone. Only time will tell, but we can only say for ourselves, walking through with our own eyes, and Scott looking from up above in the AIR7, that there's so much that really is gone. And so this is just the beginning, we feel like. This is just the beginning of finding out how much is truly gone, and just the few people that are left trying to save what they can. It's intense, it's emotional. There's so much, you guys, that we're feeling out here as we watch and cover it. And then the desperation outside of the barricades for people that can't even come in, who are wondering, is my home still up? Can I go in there to protect my property? I'm hearing that there's looting going on. What can I do? It's really quite the situation out here.
Yeah, so many issues to talk about, Tony, including the water issue. We've had so many complaints about the water pressure there, that people didn't have enough water, the firefighters didn't have enough water to fight the fire. What are you seeing now? Are people still dealing with that? I could see the hoses behind you. It looks like they're getting some help now.
Well, that was the story. The water issue, I believe, was up in Pacific Palisades, but here along PCH in Malibu, we're off close to Tuna Canyon. They haven't had an issue. We've seen these hoses being used throughout the day. I don't know if that is, related, if they have the same water supply as they do up in Palisades, but there's that hydrant right there, and there's even the residents that we heard from using their own hoses, tying them up to the hydrants and just trying to do their best to try to knock these embers down, knock everything out so that the fire doesn't spread to their own homes. And as far as blaming, the blame game, I did ask the residents about that, and they're like, look, at this point, we can't just keep living on that blame game, because what's done is done. We just have to help each other out. We got to just be grateful for those who are doing the work, the hard work for us out here, and maybe not focus so much on the negative. That's just one perspective. I know there's plenty of others who are like angry and frustrated, and so are they, but it's kind of like, what can we do as a community to move forward? That's kind of what I'm gathering. And yes, there are mistakes maybe that were on the way that some people might point out, but what can we do moving forward as a community to support each other?
All right, Tony, thank you very much for that. Let's go to Josh Haskell, who's in downtown Los Angeles. He was at that news conference that took place a few hours ago. We heard you getting a lot of questions in there to Mayor Bass. Tell us what's the latest.
Well, I first just want to respond to that incredibly powerful sound that Tony Cabrera just brought, and that gentleman from Malibu talking about how he felt like it was more than 1,000 structures. They keep using that number. I want to update our audience and our viewers that they changed that number at this press conference from more than 1,000 structures to thousands of structures damaged or destroyed in this fire. They talked about how they haven't even been able to get teams into these neighborhoods. They're actually using radar and technology from flights for heat maps to find out where homes were, and these are rough estimates. So we've gone from over 1,000 to thousands. Also, what that gentleman said, really, I saw yesterday, Pacific Palisades, I said 50 to 75% gone. It really feels closer to 75%. So much of the community wiped off the map. And that's something that we asked our leaders about inside. And I specifically asked about the firefighting struggles, the water pressure, the hydrants that John, all of you guys have just been talking about. Let's go to that sound.
Josh Haskell, ABC7 Eyewitness News. Mayor Bass, I've been on the fire lines the last 2 days. I've never seen firefighters this desperate. At fire hydrants, water not coming out, the pressure so low, the number one tool that they use to fight these fires, not there. How frustrated are you about that? And also, I'm getting texts right now from the Palisades Highlands community. We're almost 48 hours after this fire started. There's not resources up there. The hydrants aren't working. Where's the National Guard? Where are miles and miles of water tenders? How are we addressing this?
Well,
Your reaction.
First of all, you asked me, was I frustrated by this? Of course, because we all know that this has been an unprecedented event. We also know that fire hydrants are not constructed to deal with this type of massive devastation, and that the number one problem, especially on Wednesday, was the fact that we weren't able to do the air support because of the winds. And so, of course, I am absolutely frustrated by that. I am not sure that is correct, that there are no resources up there, but rest assured, as soon as we are done here, I will follow up on that.
But those homes, the first day and a half, there were homes up there that had been protected by the fire. And then I went up there yesterday and there were
that had been protected?
That it basically had been saved. Obviously, the fire's moving in different directions, but when I went up there yesterday, there were not a lot of resources. We drove around, and then I know that things got worse up there. I'm just wondering, now that we move 48 hours past, how are we addressing these water problems that are continuing, and is it acceptable that they continue?
Well, let me just say that the water problems are a little better now because the winds are such that we can go up and have the air support. And you know that that was the reason that the devastation was so bad, the unprecedented wind, the strength of the wind, and the fact that the air support could not go up. Thank you.
In a little bit of context, there are, of course, multiple fires burning right now in LA County. That's what that press conference was about. My questions specifically were about the Palisades fire, because that's the fire that I've been covering the last 2 days, and that is the fire that has had all of these water hydrant, water pressure issues. So that's what Mayor Bass's responses were to. Of course, there is no doubt, as we've been reporting since before this wind event even started, an unprecedented, damaging, frightening, scary wind event, weather conditions that we have not experienced before. But as we know, there have been fires before where we cannot fly. This is not the first fire that helicopters can't get up. And there are real questions being asked, as you heard there, about why are there still homes burning 48 hours later? Where are these resources? And what are we doing? And it's kind of unclear right now how we're getting water to these communities to save what's left of the Palisades. Or are they just letting it burn? There's just too much wind. Chief Crowley mentioned she's saying or hearing 60-mile-per-hour winds could happen today in that area. That's coming from Chief Crowley. And also just an update that the Palisades fire at 17,000 acres. They talked about that extreme fire behavior. They do believe that they're going to get some air support up today, so that is good news. But this is what we're dealing with. It's difficult to comprehend a disaster like this that, you know, many of us have never seen before. I'll send it back to you.
Yeah, Josh, it's just heart-wrenching to learn now that thousands of structures have been lost in the Palisades fire. But it was interesting to learn in that news conference that officials are considering cars, mobile homes, sheds as structures, which we didn't know until this morning. We were considering homes, commercial buildings as structures. It's hard for us to fathom the loss. But again, because you're so familiar with the area and you're from there, did you say it feels that 70% of the Palisades is gone? Even with that new information that cars are being considered as structures?
Yeah, and you guys have been seeing the aerials this morning, the alphabet streets. I grew up in that neighborhood. I went by my childhood home yesterday. It is completely gone. Places that I never thought fire could reach to. In the flatlands of the Palisades, there are homes much closer to the mountains than the homes that burn. The village of the Palisades, the Huntington, that's a neighborhood in the Palisades. On the other side of Sunset, half of that neighborhood is completely gone. Marquez, the Bluffs, I mean, so many sections of this community, and we have active fires still in the Highlands. Yesterday, touring what I could, I said 50 to 75%, knowing in my gut it was probably closer to 75%. And now seeing the aerials this morning that we can bring to you, it's hard to imagine what the future of that community looks like. Palisades is a strong, resilient community. I'm thinking about all my friends and neighbors, the childhood homes, the July 4th parade, riding my bike to school, the pride of that community, meeting people on the village green. It's just a place where people care about each other, they love each other, there's really strong civic engagement and community groups. It's obviously near the beach, so you have that whole beach community, and it's hurting right now, and it's really hard to explain. Yeah, I know we're seeing these images, and I'm talking about it, but when everyone gets a chance to see what happened to Pacific Palisades, there's really no words.
Josh, it gets back to the extreme weather event that we saw. I've never covered a fire in the Palisades before because it's rarely ever touched by a typical Santa Ana. But this event came down from the north, and we had Palisades impacted. We had Pasadena impacted. How often do we see fire get into Pasadena like that? It's extremely rare. But these winds were just incredible. And as we've been seeing, firefighters, frankly, were overwhelmed. They've admitted that. They were overwhelmed when this started.
Without a doubt, you know, the home that I grew up in on Chautauqua and Carey Street, I remember in the 90s, those Malibu fires that I know you covered. I remember my mom saw flames from the window when that fire crossed Topanga. And that's always the fear that when the fire jumps Topanga, Palisades is going to be next up. But since that point, I cannot remember a time where there was real fear about the Palisades. There's been brush fires. There's been incidents here and there. There are drills, preparations. There's, of course, that well-known reservoir up in the Palisades Highlands that the LAFD works at that I just asked Chief Crowley about. And they're telling me that they are pulling from other reservoirs right now. Hollywood Reservoir, they said, was key last night when it came to fighting that Sunset fire. And they assured me that when helicopters start their water drops, and maybe that's already happened, I haven't seen the images yet, that there will be water for that the water that helicopters drop is not coming from those hydrants. But what I'm still upset about, and I didn't really get a clear answer to, is that we've known about this hydrant issue since I believe it was 3 o'clock in the morning when that third reservoir that serves the Palisades ran out of water and the hydrants dried up. 3 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday morning. And what are we doing to address that? And I would think that at this point, California, our infrastructure, our emergency management, that there would be miles and miles of water tenders and a plan to get firefighters what they need. And I'm hearing that that's still an issue in parts of the Palisades. And I got a text from my cousin this morning who said that we're hearing that it was a really bad night in the Palisades Highlands. Chris Christie was over there yesterday afternoon where homes were burning in the Summit area. And that really bad night, they were still having issues with the fire hydrants, and that's confirmed from people that I know on the ground there. And it's frightening to hear that this is still going on.
Yes, that will definitely be a focus in the days to come. Also, Josh, as far as the cause goes, during the news conference, they were saying that it is under investigation, but I believe one of the reporters asked something about a backyard garden. What have you heard along those lines, if anything?
Well, I want to make an important point that a lot of the homes around the Palisades Highlands, the top of Lockman Lane, in the hills of the Palisades, their backyards is the Santa Monica Mountains. There's no homes behind them. And that is extreme fire danger, not even in a red flag condition. And if someone was doing garden work, which is what the question was somebody doing garden work? Is that what caused this fire? We don't know. I don't believe, I don't remember the exact answer. I'm pretty sure Chief Crowley with the LAFD said that it's still under investigation. But if that's what caused it, that somebody thought it was okay to do outdoor work in these weather conditions that we were warned about, no words again. Like, how is that possible? How is that legal? And we put out the warnings, and yeah, it's a good question, and it's something that we'll continue to report on. And many, many questions will come. And I just want to highlight that it was a tough news conference for Mayor Bass, and she got some very tough questions. And her answers were often, I want to focus on the lives, the fire right now, everything that's happening in these communities, because it is true, homes are still burning, people are under mandatory evacuations, people have lost their homes. But she didn't want to get into, you said there will be time, we will study this, there will be a report, they're going to look at any type of failures that may have happened. But people are looking for leadership right now. They're wondering, how is this fire hydrant issue still happening? It's been 48 hours. Why are people still being evacuated? And it seems like people are confused on where to turn. And they're asking tough questions of our leaders, as they should, and we'll continue to ask those questions because we just don't know. And I can tell that when we did ask those questions, the leaders responded by saying, talking about the weather, which we've been reporting on, and the conditions in this unprecedented an event, and that is 100% true, and we cannot downplay that. And we also have to highlight the incredible work of our first responders and our firefighters who are putting their lives on the line to save our homes, our livelihoods, human life, and that does not go unappreciated at all.
Josh, we know you're going to stay on top of this. Great reporting. Thank you, and we'll check back in. Next, we want to go to Tony Cabrera, who's live along the coast in Malibu.
Okay.
Tony.
Good. Hey, Rachel. Yeah, we are here along PCH by Tuna Canyon, and we've been talking about the homes here that have kind of reignited, partially at least. These homes didn't come all the way to the ground like the ones that span all across PCH. There are dozens upon dozens of homes that are typically oceanfront property. And I want to bring in someone that we've been speaking to throughout the morning, John Turtletaub. You've lived here how long?
I lived here 20 years.
20 years.
And my father-in-law, who built our houses, 40 years.
Now, we mentioned you earlier in this newscast talking about how you are one of few people who still have a house still standing at this moment.
At this moment.
At this moment.
It's only because, frankly, our neighbors didn't leave when they were told to leave and fought all night long. Every ember, every piece of plant burning, they fought and fought and fought, and we still have our house.
Wow. And you all, I witnessed you guys trying to use the hoses to try to put out any embers that were sparking up here.
It's all smoking, it's all burning still, and then when the wind kicks up, the embers fly over, and then another house and another piece of brush catches. So you just have to stay nonstop on top of it with water. I have so much respect for the fire department now. Realize how hard it is what they do.
Yeah, and we were here when you were by yourselves. Now we have Manhattan Beach. We have El Segundo that's here helping put out the hot spots and everything. We just had a news conference that was talking about the number of structures that were damaged. Earlier, when you and I last talked, it was 1,000 or more. And you said, no way, it's got to be way more than that. And they've now said thousands of structures. What do you...
It's thousands. No one is getting it. It's so much worse than anything we've ever seen before. And in LA, you think, oh, someone's exaggerating. It can't possibly be that. It's as bad as you could possibly imagine. The city of Pacific Palisades doesn't exist anymore. The people are all alive. Phenomenal how no one died. And do they rebuild? Do they move? None of us know. But I will say this. Every person I've spoken to who has lost their home, and we thought ours was gone, people are staying positive and up and just handling it and not freaking out. It's strange.
That is. I mean, that's incredible to hear that, because with just so much devastation, you turn left, you turn right, there's a destroyed home, there's a destroyed business, school, church, whatever it is. But what does that say?
Everyone's it's not in their control, and it's happening to everyone. So people sit and watch their houses burn on their Ring cameras or on TV. And it's not just you, it's everyone. My daughter has 23 kids in her class, 11 lost homes.
Oh.
That's not like, oh, something bad happened. That's like as bad as it gets.
I know for people like that, my family and friends, when I tell them about what I saw when I get back from the fire zone, it's hard for people to realize how much has really gone on here without seeing it for themselves. We finally got the helicopter up to show the destruction. From what they could see, there's still a lot of smoke. When you drove through for the first time and saw it, what were you thinking?
I couldn't get over it. It was pitch black, the power's out. And as I drove down PCH, looking over my shoulder to make sure the sheriffs weren't following me because I wasn't supposed to be here, I didn't know where I was because all of the landmarks along the way are just gone. You know, oh, this turn is where that house is, or that restaurant. There's nothing. LA, we've all seen the postcards, and everyone talks, oh, I want a beach house in Malibu. That's not a thing. There are no beach houses in Malibu. How is that possible? And we're all just like, can't wrap our heads around it.
Okay, moving forward here, how long do you stay? Do you wait for the winds to subside? Do you wait? I mean, how do you sustain that?
You just stay and stay and stay and keep putting water on it as long as you can. And then once you feel the house is safe, then you leave because there's no power, right? There's no gas. It's all done. So we don't know even if we save the house, if it's livable around here. And you think you have a community, people's houses may be safe, but there are no markets, there's no schools, there's no churches, it's gone. And yet, people are going to make it through this. We are.
I love hearing you say that. John, thank you so much for sharing with us, and our best of luck to you. And we'll got to send it back to you guys back in studio.
Want to see your house? Tony, thank you very much for that. We are going to talk to LA County Supervisor Catherine Barger, who's on the phone with us now. Supervisor, do you hear us?
There.
Supervisor Barger, are you there?
Yes, I'm right here.
Thank you for talking to us. We listened to the news conference earlier, and we want to know what's the very latest that you can tell us, 10:26 in the morning, any new developments?
No, I mean, Josh, I think, covered it well. I was listening, and I hear loud and clear. People want leadership in a time when they feel that there is no hope. And I, for one, representing Altadena, Pasadena, Sierra Madre, the whole area up that's impacted by the Eaton fire, stand ready to do just that, to fill that void that they feel is there. And it's gonna be talking. We talked about rebuilding, and I watched the man. There was a man interviewed at the convention center who is fighting cancer, and he's lost everything, and is wondering what is next. And I'm here to say that we are going to be working parallel to fighting fires to make sure that we are part of the solution, not part of the problem, in getting these people's lives rebuilt.
And Supervisor, yesterday the LA County chief spoke about being prepared to fight two major fires. Can we say that they didn't prepare enough for this? Is that unfair?
Well, I'm not going to Monday morning quarterback, but I will tell you, I was up in Altadena, and it was like a whack-a-mole. You had the winds blowing in a way that was carrying embers far away. So you had 2 homes burning here, and then about 5 blocks away, 6 homes burning, and then 5 blocks over there was 6. I mean, it was absolute chaos. And then you look at Lake Avenue, which you go 1 block. I watched Aldi burning, and I remember when that was built. I watched Foxes go down. This was the most difficult fire. It is the most difficult fire to fight because of the strength of the winds. It's carrying it miles. And when you've got limited resources, because it's not just Eaton that we're fighting, as you know, the Palisades. We had one up in Acton, which thank God I think we're going to be okay on. Our first responders triage and do the best they can, recognizing that behind each building that's burning is an impact on someone's life. And I, for one, have, I know one dear friend who lost his home. And then my town council, which are elected to represent Altadena, I know of at least 5 who have lost their homes. So this is beyond just a constituent. This is personal. And I'm going to be going back out this afternoon. There's no question in my mind that people are in shock. And shock is going to turn to anger. So I'm going to deal with lessons learned and did we fail? But right now, my focus is being there to support my constituents.
And Supervisor, our colleague Josh Haskell specifically questioned the mayor about a water problem in Palisades. Are you aware of the issue that he referenced, and can you speak to that?
So, I know better to be thought of fool than open my mouth, and I do not understand. The DWP CEO explained it, and it had to do with water pressure, is my understanding. So there was water available, but because they had depleted the 3, they're not reservoirs, but tanks that they had that were full, the pressure was not there to carry the water. And so I would punt to them to better explain it in layman's terms, but that's my understanding. It had to do with pressure and the ability to get the water out, but that's about as much as I know.
Supervisor, what is top on your list to deal with as your constituents begin to recover and maybe try to rebuild from all of this? Is it the insurance area space of all of this? What's most important right now to you?
Oh, my God, Leslie. I mean, that is a good question. Insurance obviously is front and center as it relates to the concerns that my constituents have expressed. And, you know, our Commissioner Lara, I'm going to ask him to come to one of the press briefings because I think it's important for him to outline what the expectation is. I would encourage people, you have agents, put them to work. They were there to sell you your policy. Now make sure that they help you navigate the bureaucracy. And speaking of bureaucracy, what am I going to do? I'm going to make sure we cut the red tape. You know, these people are suffering. I don't want them to have to wait years to get approvals. Let's streamline the process. We know what we need to do to help these people get their house or their whatever they're going to rebuild. And so, you know, my goal is going to be to, once again, challenge our county family to get out of the way and help these people rebuild.
And Supervisor, let's say, for argument's sake, one of these fires turns out to be caused by power lines down. The utilities are responsible for that. Should they bear the cost to the insurance companies rather than the homeowners? Isn't that what's happening? And then my next question is, why would they're basically passing the buck on to us in both ways. They're raising our rates and they're raising our insurance rates. Our power rates are going up and our insurance rates are going up, and that certainly doesn't sound fair.
No, as someone who you just hit on both in my case, and both have gone up, I could not agree with you more. But understand that they are being held responsible, and they have written large checks in areas where, in fact, they have the utilities have been responsible for the fire. It's too soon to tell, but I guarantee you that is something that there is precedent for it, and we will hold whomever is responsible, financially responsible for it.
Supervisor Barger, we appreciate your availability once again this morning, and we're, of course, thinking of you and all of Southern California right now. Thank you.
Thank you all. Be safe.
Thank you. Next, we want to go to Eyewitness News reporter Sid Garcia, who is live in Pacific Palisades. Sid.
Good morning, guys. You know, driving up here and seeing all this firsthand, it's just heartbreaking. This used to be Marquez Elementary School. It's burnt to the ground, and some of the folks we talked to that were here, this is where they were sending their kids to school, but now there's no school left. It's been destroyed. You go to the right, Roma, if you go to the right, everything up here is destroyed, but directly across the street, you've got homes that remain standing. And that's been the interesting part here, is that as you drive through here, you see devastation. Home after home after home that's been destroyed, but then there's the one that remained. Earlier this morning, I had a chance to talk to a gentleman and his best friend. They came up to check on his house. As they were driving up, he was explaining he saw the devastation, the loss of homes, his neighbors' homes, but his was still standing. Sigh of relief. He was grateful to his neighbors who spent the night, used garden hose to wet down the houses and did their best to save some of the homes that are up here. When you look around here, yeah, there's a lot of property that was destroyed, but also there are a lot of homes that still remain standing. And Supervisor Barger was talking about the rebuilding process and how that's going to go. When the one resident here that we had a chance to talk to, they want to help their neighbors rebuild. They want to rebuild. They want to remain living in this beautiful area here of Los Angeles. I was introduced to Pacific Palisades as a little boy. My late father was one of the top floor covering specialists in Southern California, linoleum, carpeting, that. So because he was one of the best, this is where I spent a lot of my summer vacations as a little boy in upscale neighborhoods installing carpeting. And I remember some of these landmarks, especially in downtown Pacific Palisades. You know, Josh mentioned it about an Italian restaurant that was iconic. It's burned. It just seems like something just exploded here and there was nothing left. But again, as I'm driving through the streets here, through the neighborhood here near the elementary school, there's still a lot of homes that remain standing. But then again, you're reminded just how devastating the fire that roared through here in the past couple of days, the devastation left behind, and folks are now, trying to figure out how they are going to move forward and rebuild and stay in this community. I could tell you weather-wise, there's no wind. It's absolutely calm. It is, dare I say, eerily quiet. What I hear in the background are there two super scoopers that have been coming by, dropping water here in certain spots. There's still a couple of little spot fires burning here, but they're burning in spots where everything else around the flame has been destroyed. But I mean, you've got folks, this was their neighborhood. This is where the kids began their school careers. This is a lot of memories, and imagine all of the artwork, the crafts that these kids put together that were in their classroom. Now that's all gone, and having to explain it to the kids that their elementary school is gone, and then sadly having to explain that their home, that the one that they know, is gone as well. It's just sad. It's heartbreaking. You see all the devastation around here, but nobody got hurt. Nobody got seriously hurt. And while we saw a couple of folks up here who were hugging and just thanking their lucky stars that they were okay, they're looking at just ash and rubble and a chimney that still remains standing. So again, the weather's calm. There's no real wind up here right now. I can hear the super scoopers in the background, but it's just quiet, where at the elementary school you should hear kids enjoying recess, having fun, being a kid. Instead, who knows how long it's going to be before they rebuild this and rebuild the homes and get their lives back together. I mean, honestly, guys, you guys have covered these before as well. It's just sad to see, but you also see some of the folks who are fortunate that their homes remain standing. So the one gentleman we talked to whose home is still standing, he's already in touch with his neighbors saying, what are we going to do? How are we going to rebuild? And that's the key. He said there's a lot of hope, and that gives him hope that his neighbors, as much as they lost their homes, they want to rebuild. They want to stay here. And that's how tight that community is that they want to start the rebuilding process. And it'll start by getting this school rebuilt so the kids have a safe place to go to school again and start making memories. But man, it's just sad to see. And I'm just thinking, I've got kids of my own. You guys do too. Think of all the work that they put into all the arts and crafts, the home, everything else that was destroyed in this fire. Let's send it back to you.
Different scene. Can you compare the two in terms of how the environment has changed?
Yeah. The past couple of days, we've been dealing with winds. I had goggles on and a mask. Today, John, it's just really quiet. You see a couple of folks every now and then on their electric bikes, their e-bikes, riding around here. But there should be a lot of noise, a lot of kids having fun, recess or whatever. There's nothing here. I mean, one resident said it was like the zombie apocalypse. Everything's gone. That's burnt down. You got a couple of guys around here riding around right now, checking things out. But we saw a lot of LA City Fire still driving around here checking up, but it's just, John, it's just quiet, eerily quiet. I could hear the planes in the background, but you know what? It's like the life was burnt out of this place. The soul's gone. The familiar sounds of kids playing and folks walking around with their dogs enjoying a beautiful day in the Palisades. That's not happening.
All right, Sid, thank you. Certainly be safe out there. I know it's quiet, but there's still plenty of dangers in situations like that. Thanks for talking to us. We want to talk to Leslie Lopez about the weather conditions. It's Leslie, Sid's location. It looks so calm, but I guess it's not going to stay that way.
In Sid's location, I think you're going to be much better off. In other areas, it won't be the case. As you can see right behind me, you're going to get to see some very strong gusty winds as you're heading out into Riverside and also out towards inland Orange County and Orange County communities. This is 69 degrees right now over in Riverside, and the winds are gusting to about 35 miles per hour right now. And they're only going to increase in higher elevations to 50 to 60 miles per hour as we're getting into this later evening. There is a high wind warning that will go into effect. It did start at 6 a.m. and continue onward through tomorrow at 6 a.m. So a 24-hour period of high winds for the Inland Empire and also Orange County. But we're looking out towards Burbank, and I know a lot of people are still dealing with the Altadena area where we're dealing with fires still out of control, no containment. And with that, we're concerned with how much this is going to spread here today. The one big factor that is changing the firefighting effort is going to be the wind. The wind is just not going to be blowing as strong as it was just yesterday. This is a view out towards our Glendale camera. This is right on top of our building looking out. You can see that the air quality is very poor, but the wind is not a factor. We're not seeing any trees moving. And that's going to be the case primarily for most of the day through this particular area, which we consider to be the San Gabriel Valley or the LA Basin right near our foothill communities, which don't usually get to see these very strong Santa Ana-like winds through their area, but sure did the last 2 days. A very unique situation that developed for that region, unfortunately. Mother Nature producing some of the strongest winds that will go down in history for the region. Even Burbank Airport reached 82 miles per hour. They had a wind gust of that velocity with this wind event that has just passed. So that would go down as a historic wind speed for the region. And there were other areas, even LAX, dealing with some historic wind speeds there. We are looking at, again, hazardous air quality for Southern California in a large majority. Now, this is hazardous for all groups. We often talk about air quality being hazardous for sensitive groups or anybody with comorbidities, anybody that should stay inside. We often say, well, this is a day that you should do so. But for all groups, today is a day to stay inside. You're heading out towards Riverside and Orange County. Now you're looking okay. I mean, these areas in green, you're fine. You're not dealing with the smoke and the really hazardous air pollution, particulate matter that's really just being pushed down to the surface. So you're really breathing in a lot of this smoke here this morning and into the afternoon today, and for probably the next 48 hours or more. And here we go with the red flag warnings that have now been extended. The red flag warnings will continue through 6 p.m. tomorrow. They were supposed to expire today. They're going to continue forward. We have active fires burning. We have low humidity. We also have the return of some warmer weather on account of now what we'll consider more traditional Santa Anas. Again, we talked a lot about how different yesterday's wind event was because of this northerly wind component factor, because of an area of low pressure that brought us snow earlier that morning when this all began. That feature, unusual to say the least, and did produce the historic winds that we did see through some of these areas. High wind warnings, again, are now the new alert for the Inland Empire, Orange County, but wind advisories now are widespread through areas of Los Angeles and Ventura County. And here's how it's going to go today. Again, when I say traditional Santa Ana wind pattern, now we're talking about the Santa Ana wind corridors, which often see winds making it up to about 35, 40 miles per hour, 50 at times. When we're talking about Santa Ana winds, but you know your area. Usually it's the Malibu area through Thousand Oaks, Simi Valley, more parks in there. We saw it through Camarillo, Santa Paula, Santa Clarita, you're in there, Porter Ranch is in there. You head across over into some of our San Gabriel Mountain communities, but not the San Gabriel Foothill Valley areas. They usually sit out the Santa Anas, but again, we had more of a northerly wind component, which really did drive up the winds for Pasadena and the Altadena area yesterday and the day before. Now we get into Inland Empire, traditional Santa Anas, 18-mile-per-hour winds. And that's why I said when John asked, will the Altadena area receive those winds late tonight? I don't believe so, because the winds have now shifted to more traditional Santa Anas, northeasterly. With that, I think there will be a firefight that the firefighters hopefully can handle and keep the air support going throughout most of the day and maybe even into the early evening hours for the Altadena, Pasadena area. But it might be a different story for the Palisades area. This is why we are expecting to see the winds to really pick up and ramp up. Now, these are northeasterly winds. So the wind is going to push fire and flame and flare-ups towards the southwest. They're coming from the northeast. They'll be pushed out to the southwest. Currently, what we're looking at is that fire is creeping up hillsides. Again, fire likes to climb higher terrain. It preheats all the vegetation above it, so it moves fast up hillsides. So that's why it's getting into the Brentwood area at the moment, because it is lacking in wind. Once the wind gets started, it can burn back on itself, which is very possible, or move into new areas that would be to the southwest of where the head or nose of the fire is. We're looking at 30-mile-per-hour wind gusts overnight. So again, we're back to some pretty high velocities, but not as high as where we were when we're dealing with peak winds with this event. Now, this is a little bit different of an event. This is, again, more of a traditional Santa Ana, so we will not see as strong of winds as our original event, but it will be stronger than last night. So again, I'm just trying to give you and orient you to what we should be expecting tonight. Eaton Fire, we have, again, more of a calmer situation because the winds have shifted away. Now, we're also looking out towards our forecast models here. I just want to show you how it is going to go. This is, again, mostly of Inland Empire, Orange County wind event out towards our desert communities, mountain communities, usual, typical for this. And then, unfortunately, still in the Moore Park, Oxnard, Malibu, Palisades area, Santa Clarita. But again, the fires will be moving and the flames will be, again, moving back out of the northeast to the southwest. So, again, I just want to kind of give you an idea of how this might go late tonight. We are going to be moving forward, again, high pressure building in for the next few days. And so, unfortunately, when high pressure builds in, we do have to be very concerned with offshore conditions. We have offshore conditions that produce offshore winds that dry us out, and then we have Santa Ana offshore conditions. And unfortunately, that's where we're going to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And I think Tuesday's Santa Ana wind event will probably be strong now. So we're elevating that, unfortunately, having to produce 45 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts again in the forecast for Tuesday. We're going to keep you all on alert. I want to give you the latest and best information. So we're going to be here. Dallas Rain's always on top of that, too. He'll be here later on tonight, giving you the latest information on what's to come. And we'll just hope for the best at this juncture with the firefighting efforts of firefighters doing an excellent job. I just can't imagine what they've been dealing with. So,
yeah.
Our hearts go out to everybody who's lost a home and belongings, and worse than that, maybe some lives lost too. And so, you know, this is just unprecedented and hard to comprehend, really.
Yes.
Over to you.
It sure is. We'll continue to be on top of it, though, Les. Thank you very much for that. And we were joined just a short time ago by ABC's David Muir on the set with us. He is in Los Angeles covering these fires. Take a listen to what he had to say.
You travel from community to community, from neighborhood to neighborhood, and homes are gone in neighborhood after neighborhood, you know, and I think in previous wildfires, you'll have sort of a hot spot that then grows and you have loss, and it's heartbreaking in a certain area. Here, as you drive around the Pacific Palisades, which we're now seeing these extraordinary aerial images that just basically look like it's been wiped out, and in many ways it has. I think we're talking about thousands and thousands of structures. I know they haven't given an official toll there yet. But when you drive down the Pacific Coast Highway, and I was in the Palisades villages, as you call it, the little town square there, it's completely gone. We did the broadcast from there last night, and I knew as we were standing there that typically people would be having dinner, going shopping, and it looks like, I hate to say this, but it looks like an awful movie set, like as though many of these neighborhoods have been bombed. Like there's been an aerial assault. And so my heart goes out to everybody out there. I know what's been remarkable about this, the heroism of the firefighters and the first responders, when you think about how little life has been lost. I mean, any life is too many lives to lose. But when you look at this kind of devastation and the death toll is where it is, that's extraordinary work on the first responders and the people of Southern California who know this, they've lived this, they heed the warnings. And this time it was just very, very true what was coming. People have lost their entire homes, where they've raised their children, where they've raised their grandchildren, all of their belongings, their photographs, their mementos. I saw the cars in the Pacific Palisades that have been left in the road, people with a fire on top of them, essentially, and they got out of the cars and left. The cars are now melted metal right on the road. They use the bulldozers to get them out of the way. And so when you see again how many people actually did survive this, who are saying we will rebuild, who are saying, you know, I've got my family and my grandchildren, and I checked on my neighbor next door and the person across the street. Those are the stories that always sit with me, and we're only a day and a half into this, and how many stories have we heard about people who checked on the person across the street, and because of that, they were helped too. I think that's going to be, sadly, one of the great lasting legacies of this horrific story that we're all living through right here in Southern California right now, is just how giving the people of Southern California are. They did race to safety, but they didn't do it without checking on the neighbor first. And I think that speaks volumes.
And our team coverage continues with Scott Reif live in AIR7. Scott, where are you now, and what are you seeing?
Well, we're over the Palisades. We're over that area that's just been decimated. We're going out off the ocean here into the Pacific, and I think we can show you the super scoopers. They can get a load of water off of the ocean as long as the seas aren't too rough, and they just picked up some water now, and they're going to drop that on what would be the northeastern flank of the fire that's burning up towards the Brentwood area. We'll come up and show you a wide shot. The fire has just exploded in the last half hour or so. That's the area right there on the right side of your screen that they're concerned about, and that's where the super scoopers are making their drops. But it has gotten a little warmer. We still don't have much in the way of wind, but all of a sudden this fire just erupted. I want to go back to the left and go into that area that was so decimated there in the Pacific Palisades off of Sunset and Temescal Canyon. And I got to tell you, we were just shocked. We came out of Van Nuys Airport. We were working the fire since 8:30 this morning. Since about 4 o'clock this morning. It was dark. We couldn't see much, but at 8:30 we came out after getting a full load of fuel, and this is what we saw. And we really almost couldn't believe it. I mean, it's just unfathomable what we're looking at. It is thousands of homes that are gone. We feel for these folks. It must be horrendous to have to deal with this, no place to go. And the scale, we've really never seen anything close to this scale of destruction with anything we've covered over the years. Certainly nothing like this with a fire. Of course, the earthquake was pretty dramatic and pretty tough and widespread, right? It was throughout a large area, but we've never seen destruction like this before, and we really feel for those people. It's almost hard to describe. I mean, it's sickening. It makes you feel bad. Initially, you look at it and you just look at it and you're overwhelmed, and then it sort of sets in, the human toll, the loss of people's, their goods, their livelihood. They just can't work for a while. They have to rebuild. It's quite unsettling, if you will. And there's the super scooper. So we do have helicopters making drops on what would be the western flank towards Malibu, and you're seeing the super scoopers now make water drops on what is the eastern or the northeastern flank, and that is closer to the Brentwood area. But boy, we got a huge battle on our hands. We are nowhere close to being out of the woods with this fire, especially if the winds kick up. The winds are calm right now, but if we start to get some, Santa Ana winds in the 30, 40, 50 miles an hour, I'm afraid we're going to lose more homes.
And Scott, thank you for this new view, because you've been showing us so much of the devastation. I wanted to ask if you were still seeing many active flames, but obviously this fire continues to burn.
Yeah, the active flames are in there. We just can't see it because it's all obscured by smoke. But when you see a loom up like that and you see it go straight up in the air, what you really realize is just how hot it is. So we have got a lot of brush that's being consumed. Fortunately, right there at the loom up, right there on the right side of your screen, that mostly is just brush in the Santa Monica Mountains. There's not a lot of homes in there. But when we were on the other side, one area that was of real concern was, I think it's Fernwood, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sure somebody will correct me if I am. But that community off Topanga Canyon, as you make your way down towards PCH, maybe a couple miles inland, boy, there were a lot of spot fires burning very close to homes. And I think that is where the helicopters are trying to make their water drops and save those homes. But with this loom up, now you get more exposure. I don't know if we've got an update on acreage above that. What was it, 19,000 or 17,000 acres on this fire? I think once Air Attack got up, we were going to get an acreage number that's quite a bit bigger. But when you get more exposures, it's just so much more difficult for firefighters because they have so much to try and work on and contain. But really, the key right here is the winds. If we don't get a big pickup in the winds, they'll make some progress, especially when things cool down and overnight. But if we do have those Santa Ana winds kick back up, it's going to be a struggle.
It certainly is, Scott. Oh, we are looking at that huge cloud of smoke there, and air quality just awful all over Southern California.
It's horrible. It's horrible. I got to tell you, I'm starting to lose my voice. We went into Van Nuys Airport, and it's actually a little better where we're at right now, but going into Van Nuys is completely covered with smoke, and that's not smoke from the fire that you're looking at. That's not from the Palisades fire. That is from the Eaton fire. All that smoke coming off the hill there is just slowly moving to the south and to the west, and now the San Fernando Valley completely covered with smoke. We went into Van Nuys Airport. You can taste it. You can feel it. You can see ash on the ground. It is extremely unhealthy. That is from the Eaton fire, but that Eaton fire also laid down all sorts of smoke and unhealthy air over all of Los Angeles. One thing I noticed, nobody's out driving. The 405 freeway, the Ventura freeway, all the freeways we've seen, they're ghost towns. There's nobody on them. Everybody's staying home, as they rightfully should. This is a natural disaster of the types we have never seen. We have 2 massive fires burning, and we really haven't been able to get up to the Eaton fire, to get up in that area of Pasadena and Altadena and look through the smoke. That's been too smoky. It's been too much of a smoke event. We haven't been able to see the devastation there. I certainly hope it's not as bad as what we're seeing here in the Palisades.
I certainly hope so, too, and it is good news that most people are staying off the roads. I've probably never received more texts than I have in the last couple of days from people saying that they're staying home, just waiting and watching to see what happens with these fires. And, Scott, you just showed us one water drop there. How aggressive has this air assault been this morning in the last couple of hours?
Well, in the last couple of hours it has picked up. I don't see any air tankers here right now, and those are certainly key to surrounding the fire and putting it out. But the super scoopers are hitting it aggressively. It is one of the fires where the super scoopers can be pretty effective once the wind dies down, and if they can pick up off ocean, if the oceans are calm enough, which they are today, for them to fuel up, or I should say get a bag of water, then they can quickly do turnarounds, and they can be very, very effective. I haven't seen the big tankers in here yet, and we need them. So hopefully they're on the way. Also, they are inbound. We're hearing now that they are inbound, and that is certainly good news because they can make a significant difference with just a few drops. They can certainly stop the fire from spreading towards areas, and then the fire department doesn't have to worry about those spots. They're like, okay, we got retardant around that whole northeastern flank. We can put our resources somewhere else that could save houses, and that's sort of the strategy right there. So the tankers are en route. It was a little interesting this morning. We got daylight, and it seemed like there was a little bit of a delay for the helicopters getting out over this fire. I'm not certain why, if that just looked that way to me, or if maybe they had some crew times that were expired, so many guys flying the days before. But they do have them up now, and they're being diligent. They're hitting it as hard as they can with everything they can, and the super scoopers are making a difference in this fire. They don't always. Some of the fires are difficult for them to really be effective, but Marcel, if you push back up in there once again, I think we'll see the super scooper make a drop, and then we can show you that big loom up. It's gotten even bigger in the last couple of minutes since I showed it to you a moment ago, but the super scooper is going to get right along the top of that ridge line and then drop that load of water, and there's an air attack aircraft overhead that is directing him, that pilot or her, exactly where to make the drop. And there you see they're dropping the water, and they're going to continue to do that. And since they can load up with water right off the ocean, they can make really quick turnarounds. But open up as wide as you can, Marcel, and just give you a little perspective. In the last, I'd say 15 to 20 minutes, this fire has erupted. It's not because of the winds. I think it's gotten to some of that thick, heavy brush and steep terrain in that portion of the Santa Monica Mountains in between, say, Tarzana and Malibu. And unfortunately, I think what could really be at risk, I can't tell for sure from right here, but would be that area off of Topanga Canyon Boulevard. I think we got some homes threatened in there. Sadly, I think we're going to lose a lot more.
And really discouraging to hear you say that in the last 15 to 20 minutes, this fire has erupted. Obviously, that is not what we want. Meteorologist Leslie Lopez, I just checked in with her. She said the wind's really picking up tonight. So there's somewhat of a tight window for these firefighters to make progress from the air and to make these airdrops before they may be grounded once again, it sounds like.
No question. I think the next few hours are going to be critical as we make our way into the afternoon. If that forecast is that those winds are high enough that they can't fly, I think everybody's hoping that we'll get that Santa Ana. It will be moderate, and the helicopters can continue to fly. They can fly at night and continue to make drops, because if they can make a lot of progress. I mean, a lot of progress. But if the winds are so high, if we have winds like we had yesterday or the day before, if we have those types of high winds, then they're not going to be able to fly. They will not be able to be effective at all, so they'll ground all the helicopters and the airplanes, and then it's just the ground troops that have to try and stop this, and in those types of winds, it can be nearly impossible, especially, you know, once you get down into some of these areas and it really starts to take off. But I got to tell you, though, it's sickening, you know. It takes you a moment or two to really digest how bad the loss is down here. It's going to take years and years and years to recover. I remember the 93 Malibu fire. There are still homes that haven't been rebuilt. And of course, Malibu's a little tricky with building requirements and things like that. But it's going to be a long time before there's any sense of normalcy here in the Pacific Palisades. Years.
The first word that's been coming to mind all day and yesterday to me is unreal, but the reality is this is real, and it's so sad and it's so heartbreaking for thousands of families that are dealing with just this devastation, loss of life, loss of property, homes, cars. We just learned all LAUSD schools are closed tomorrow. Scott, yeah, this is just hard to fathom. I'm curious, have you been over to the Eden fire in San Gabriel Valley at all today?
Yeah, we tried to fly out there earlier. That was our first stop once we had sunlight, but we just weren't able to see anything. What's going on with the Eaton fire, from what I can tell, my assessment that when we were over it, it is mostly burning in the Angeles National Forest. In that forest area, there's thick, heavy brush, there's heavy fuel, and it's burning in that area. It did burn last night with the winds down to the flatland in Pasadena, but now it's just a smoke event up in the mountains.
Okay. Scott Reif, thank you so much for your coverage all morning long. We appreciate it.
This is Eyewitness News with live breaking news.
Pacific Palisades, right now, could just be taken off the map.
Right now at 11, devastation and despair amid one of the worst fires in Los Angeles history. We're just now starting to get a better look at the widespread damage. We have live team coverage.
And we're not done with the winds just yet. Danny Romero is in for Brianna with the critical fire forecast. Good morning. This is Eyewitness News at 11 a.m. live on ABC7, Hulu, and wherever you stream. I'm Giovanna Latta. You saw the winds moving our camera.
I'm Philip Palmer. Let's go right to Scott Reif. He's been live in AIR7 over the devastation of Pacific Palisades.
Yeah, it really is almost unreal. It's just hard to comprehend. When we first saw this, Philip and Giovanna, we came out of Van Nuys, we flew over here, and we just really didn't believe what we were seeing. I was looking at it, that whole area is gone. All of those homes are lost. You know, sometimes in the monitor we don't see it initially. We're pushing it with a camera, and then all of a sudden it just dawned on us just how many homes have been lost here. You see the shadow of the Super Scooper flying over. There's the Super Scooper. They've been making drops, and I'll show you that area in a moment. But everything, for the most part, is lost here. Thousands of homes right down to the shoreline. That's the village in Pacific Palisades. Some of the structures are still set, but a lot of them have been lost. And you really feel for these people. You know, it's going to be a long, long time, years before a lot of these people can recover, and years before they're going to be able to rebuild all this. Just think about trying to rebuild this entire area and all these homes. But I want to go up and show you the Super Scooper drop. They just made one. There's another one coming in right behind it. They're able to get a load of water off ocean since the winds are calm, and they're making drops on what would be the northeast portion of this Palisades fire that isn't too far from the Brentwood area. They're hitting it as hard as they can at this point in time. And I want to give you a wide shot once we see this drop of just how big this loom up. Also, Philip and Giovanna, a little bad news, because all of a sudden at altitude we're getting banged around a little bit. It's been calm all morning long, and now all of a sudden we're getting some wind gusts up here. Whether or not that is going to translate down to the ground, we don't know, but it usually does. And you see the Super Scooper making a drop, and then all of a sudden you see just how big that loom up is. So we're in a lot of trouble if these winds continue to blow.
Okay.
Oh, excuse me, we're going to go to Josh. I'm sorry.
Hey there, Scott. Thank you so much. I have some updates from the Palisades fire. A news conference took place a short time ago, which included LAFD Chief Kristen Crowley, of course, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, our county leaders, LA County Fire, discussing both or all the multiple fires going on, but I want to focus again on the Palisades fire where Scott Reif has been over and just the devastation there. The latest numbers released at that press conference, the Palisades fire has burned over 17,000 acres. It is still burning to the west towards the Brentwood area, I believe, and then to the west towards Malibu, Topanga where Scott just was, and then the east towards the Brentwood area. 60-mile-per-hour winds could be expected later today, according to the LAFD chief, which is why they still have had hesitation and have not been able to fly a lot of those helicopters and planes. But good news, as you just heard, they are up. Scott is showing them to you. So that is something they expect to happen today. But Kristen Crowler said we are still seeing and could see extreme fire behavior. I also want to make the point that there was reporting out there that over 1,000 structures had been damaged or destroyed, and that was updated at this press conference. They didn't say 1,000, 1,500, 2,000. They said thousands. Again, thousands. So that is what we're dealing with, and you can see those images from Pacific Palisades. That definitely feels accurate at this point, damaged or destroyed. And I want to toss to a question that I had for Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass regarding the firefighting efforts and all those reports that we've heard about the lack of water pressure and hydrants. Take a listen.
Josh Haskell, ABC 7 Eyewitness News. Mayor Bass, I've been on the fire lines the last 2 days. I've never seen firefighters this desperate. At fire hydrants, water not coming out, the pressure so low, the number one tool that they use to fight these fires, not there. How frustrated are you about that? And also, I'm getting texts right now from the Palisades Highlands community. We're almost 48 hours after this fire started. There's not resources up there. The hydrants aren't working. Where's the National Guard? Where are miles and miles of water tenders? How are we addressing this?
Well, first of all, you asked me, was I frustrated by this? Of course, because we all know that this has been an unprecedented event. We also know that fire hydrants are not constructed to deal with this type of massive devastation, and that the number one problem, especially on Wednesday, was the fact that we weren't able to do the air support because of the winds. And so, of course, I am absolutely frustrated by that. I am not sure that is correct, that there are no resources up there, but rest assured, as soon as we are done here, I will follow up on that.
But those homes, the first day and a half, there were homes up there that had been protected by the fire. And then I went up there yesterday and there were
that had been protected?
That it basically had been saved. Obviously, the fire's moving in different directions, but when I went up there yesterday, there were not a lot of resources. We drove around, and then I know that things got worse up there. I'm just wondering, now that we move 48 hours past, how are we addressing these water problems that are continuing, and is it acceptable that they continue?
Well, let me just say that the water problems are a little better now because the winds are such that we can go up and have the air support. And you know that that was the reason that the devastation was so bad, the unprecedented wind, the strength of the wind, and the fact that the air support could not go up. Thank you.
And the LAFD chief telling me that, quote, this is one of the most destructive natural disasters in the history of LA. I also want to update about the law enforcement aspect of this. Sheriff Luna went up to that podium. He was not happy. He said that it is the job of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department to save lives, help people get out of these evacuation zones. But instead, they're having to deal with looters. An updated number released at that press conference, 20 looters at this point have been arrested, all by the LA County Sheriff's Department, all in the Pasadena Altadena area for that Eden fire. We have not heard of widespread looting happening in the Palisades, but that does not mean that it has not happened yet. But that was an update from Sheriff Luna. DA Nathan Hochman also there having strong words for anyone that plans on taking advantage of the most vulnerable people right now who have lost everything or who have been forced to evacuate. He said this is not something that you want to do, and you will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. I'll send it back to you.
Josh Haskell, thank you for that. A live look again at the Palisades fire from AIR7. Eyewitness News reporter Tony Cabrera is on the ground now in Malibu and joins us. Tony, what are you seeing there? I pause because of the devastation that we're looking at, the rows and rows of homes that are now flattened. It's just hard to process. Tony.
That's been the heartbreak here on the Malibu side of things. Along PCH from Pacific Palisades all the way up to Malibu Canyon, there are just rows of homes, lines of homes, I should say, along the oceanfront property that's been just leveled to the ground. But there are few pockets, clusters of homes that are still standing. These are a loss. It's still standing, the structures. But what's been happening is that there's a couple of homes here, about 4 homes to the left of all this, that are in good shape, that have not been affected by the fire. These residents have been doing what they can to fight to save their own homes. And we have video showing what they were doing earlier today. We were watching as they used hoses to spray down some of the embers from the other homes nearby to try to put those hot spots out in those homes. They were going through with the hoses and just doing their best because they knew when the winds picked up, the embers could reignite other things and cause more of a problem and more spreading to happen. We spoke to one of those residents who says that he was here throughout the day and just shocked as he came in the dark hours to what he saw off of PCH.
As I'm coming down the middle of the night, no lights, I didn't know where it was on PCH because all of the landmarks are gone. You don't know what street you've crossed. You don't know which house you've passed. It's just done. It's all done. You don't, let's see, you feel a little guilty if your house is still standing, kind of, but you're also happy, and it's not the house, it's the stuff in your house. And it's the house. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, are these houses going to stay? This is the only houses, and where do people go to school? And we spend our lives in the Palisades. There are no Palisades. It's done. I don't know what you do.
How much do you think is gone, between Palisades and here, this portion of Malibu? How much of that would you say is gone?
80%. I keep hearing in the news 1,000 structures destroyed. It's got to be 5 times that. And I don't know why they keep staying on that number. If you look just at what we call the alphabet streets and all that flat area around the Palisades, there's 1,000 homes right there. And there are no homes there. Pacific Palisades right now could just be taken off the map. There is no Pacific Palisades.
And since we talked to him, we did update him on the numbers that Josh Haskell shared with us from the press conference earlier today, that there are thousands, not just 1,000, and no one is surprised by that after what they have seen, as they have whether seen it on social media, seen it on the news, or seen it for themselves with their own eyes like we did, driving through both Malibu here on the PCH coastal spots and through Pacific Palisades. We're live in Malibu. Tony Cabrera, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Yeah, Tony, it's important to note for people, thank you very much. It's important to note the acreage is an official number, the structure's official number, and they're going to have to continue to update those. So yes, Absolutely. It is everything, unfortunately, is going to be worse. Now we turn our attention to the Eaton fire, where at least 10,600 acres, it's again official numbers, have burned. 5 people have died. Officials did share some positive news, though, saying growth has significantly stopped.
But as we've seen, the destruction is already done. Mark Cota-Robles is live in Altadena, where he spoke with a victim who lost their home. Mark.
Yeah, Giovanna and Philip, good morning. You may be able to tell some large pieces of ash now falling all around us with this pretty widespread smoke event. A fire this large, there's a good chance that you may know somebody who's been impacted. For me, I now know a couple of families who lost everything in this fire, including the family who lived at this home behind us. And like so many, they're now trying to figure out what their new life will look like. Walter and Yalda Cease are going through what used to be their Altadena home, now nothing but rubble.
It's overwhelming. I don't know how we're going to get through it, but we will. I know we will. It's just going to be a long process.
The conditions they witnessed Tuesday night as flames approached is something they've never experienced before. All caught on their Ring cameras overlooking their home at the top of Altadena Drive. Still in that moment, they had hope they'd have a home to come back to. Never did they expect this.
We're going to go off and it's going to be okay. And we're going to get back and it'll be fine. And unfortunately, there's so many other people in the same situation. It's devastating, actually.
And here we are with nothing, right? 40 years of life gone in overnight.
An instant, yeah. It was.
It's unfathomable.
What they do have is each other and basic belongings they were able to grab during their quick evacuation, and their 2 dogs. While this home is gone, they say they plan to rebuild.
This is home. I've always wanted to live in Altadena. This is home. I will rebuild. I'll find a way.
Now back out live, I have known Yalda for several years. She's a local fitness instructor here in the area. She's the head coach at the Orange Theory down on Colorado Boulevard. What a heart, helps so many people in the community. Now she needs that same kind of help to rebuild her family. They have created a GoFundMe page to raise some donations. I've shared that link to my Instagram page. Again, she is just one of so many families, hundreds impacted here in the Pasadena and Altadena area. They said knowing that makes their heartbreak even worse. We're live in Altadena. Mark Cotorobles, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Mark, thank you very much. I would add to what Mark says. Between the Palisades fire and the Eaton fire, I would say everyone in Los Angeles will know someone who has lost everything. It is that widespread. It is something we're going to take years to grasp. Let's go to Danny Romero now. We still have a red flag warning. It is still dangerous. These fires are still burning. Yeah. Danny, we're holding out hope that the next wind event is just not going to be anything close to what we had.
That's the key part there. Yeah, we are going to have another rise in the winds. I'm going to show you that profile here in a second, Giovanna and Philip. And then we're going to also talk about the air quality. Keep this in mind, too. All that smoke that's been burning from the fires, and also that's still to come, is going to this really hazy look all over the area, kind of the Eaton fire look there. We're going to see air quality concerns in the unhealthful, very unhealthful for everybody, not just those with certain respiratory conditions that be aware of. So air quality in all those fire zones, take all the precautions, stay indoors if you can. If you have to be outdoors, get a mask on. I mean, it's just, go dig up all those masks from COVID you have somewhere in the house. You're going to need those here over the next couple of days, especially in those fire zones. So that's something to watch, one part of this weather picture. Also, yeah, we mentioned the warnings that are in place. We've got, of course, those winds still there. Kind of taking a little break right now, but getting set to ramp up again. Again, like Philip said, not quite as intense, but just same. The red flag warning in play because of the winds and the very dry conditions. Humidities are single digit in many of these spots, and the fires are still burning, hence that red flag is in play until tomorrow. The high wind watch in place here because the winds, I said, are going to be kicking up again through today into tomorrow. So there's the haze. Here's a show of the wind profile I mentioned. So we're going to see Palisades right now, fairly mild, single digits here, even dropping down to 2 by 5 p.m. But watch this. Now we head to the evening hours, we start ramping up again. So now we're back up into the 20s, near 30 by 3 a.m. early morning. So the winds are coming back in. Not quite as tough, but back again. Prepare accordingly. All right, Philip, Giovanna, go ahead.
Okay, Danny, thank you. We are not out of the woods yet. And we have seen the devastation, the homes, the businesses lost.
Now come the critical questions. What do we do next? And what will insurance cover?
ABC 7 is also keeping an updated list on the many resources available for victims of the fires. You can scan the QR code on your screen there to find community resources offering everything from food and shelter to animal housing and mental health support.
The fire has taken out entire neighborhoods, leaving thousands of people without a home.
And many homeowners are left not only with grief, but a critical question: what will my insurance cover? At least 10 major insurers have either left or reduced coverage here in California the last 4 years. Experts are warning customers to not sign anything under duress and to look out for fraud insurance scams from out-of-state companies.
Obtain a copy of your insurance policy. You also have to take note of your additional living expenses limits in your policy, and also track all your additional expenses. Also, we have to look out, unfortunately, for fraudsters. There is a 3-day cooling off period. Please do not sign anything with any public adjuster until you speak to your insurance company.
Those wanting more information or needing assistance can visit insurance.ca.gov.
And I think one of the tragedies we're going to face on top of this tragedy, especially in the Palisades, many people couldn't get insurance at all.
Right.
They were living there without fire insurance.
Right.
So
expensive.
we are going to see an economic disaster because of this, and that is just, this state needs to address that. They need to address the inability to get fire coverage.
Without a doubt.
The red flag warning was supposed to end today, but it has been extended.
This is a live picture from our Running Springs camera. You see the winds in action right there. They are blowing. How long will the winds last? Danny Romero has your AccuWeather forecast.
Welcome back. You're taking a look at our camera from the Angeles National Forest, looking at the Eaton fire. You can see clearly the winds are still blowing, high elevation, but they are a little better in some spots. Still, the fire is burning near Mount Wilson. AIR7 is on its way to get above the Eaton fire. But again, as we join Danny Romero, the winds are going to be such a critical piece of this. Danny, when I look at this fire, at least the plume is going up, as opposed to laying just so flat as it did the first day. But The camera's shaking. It's still blowing.
Yeah, then that's the idea. We're seeing the winds a lot less than they were before. However, yes, they are still blowing, and we're about to ramp up again in a little bit in some of the areas. Air quality, I mentioned before, pretty much that fire zone. It is unhelpful for everybody. Just stay indoors as best you can. It's just going to be a really, really tough condition here. Purple means very unhelpful, so really avoid that area or just be covered up. All right, and looking ahead now, here's how we're looking at how it's setting up for the next few days, where that red flag warning is going to still be in effect. Tomorrow as well, because the winds are still going to be there ramping up once again. Now, here's some good news. On the weekend, we're going to see things calm down as far as the winds are concerned. We'll cool down too in the 60s. And then next week, here's some bad news. Another possible red flag condition as winds kick back up again. We'll see the low humidities once again. That red flag warning in effect until Friday at 6 p.m. So that's still going to be a major area of concern that we're going to have all over the area. So we're going to keep an eye on those things. Keep an eye on how the wind's going to ramp up. So Eaton fire ramping up here this afternoon to 17 miles per hour. There's a little calmness and then back again during the early morning hours. So we're going to see that really kind of be how things are shaping up. The wind's still very, very strong. There's the air quality, certainly a very tough condition. But looking ahead, that weekend has a bit of a break. The valley also 7-day forecast shows a warmer temps Thursday, Friday. Winds, red flag still in play. Here's the break on the weekend. Another wind event for next week. Again, not quite as strong as this monstrous event that we had at the start of this week, but just the same, winds back up in that 40-mile-per-hour range. Looking ahead to the beach areas, you're going to see there, too, red flag condition Thursday and Friday. Mountain spots also. You're going to see the mountain areas, too, because the mountain spots, they're going to be very, very bad in terms of how things are kind of setting up over the area. Looking ahead to how that's going to look on the coast. Winds still there as well. Humidity is still low, even at the beach area, so certainly something to watch for. Those mountain spots, very, very windy. The desert spots also on the windy side, with temps on the cooler side, 70s for the for the low desert, 60s for the high desert, and then temperatures back again, winds back up next week too. More coming up right after this on ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
All right. We'll start with the Luma. You just want me to do a tease? Well, I'm really there. We're going to have to leave, so I'm really there. You should just do the report, get it over with, and we'll get out of here. Yeah, the winds are getting too high for us, and so we can't see Mount Wilson anyhow. But I can talk about what's going on. All right, it's a self-intro. How much time can I use? A minute and a half. All right. I'm Scott Reif at AIR7 over the Eaton fire, and that right there is Mount Wilson. There's a lot of concern that they're going to lose Mount Wilson. Now, of course, we have the observatory up there. We have a lot of antennas, repeater sites, things of that nature. And down below, right in here, it's pretty smoky, but we're starting to see some of the area that was hit very hard in Altadena and Pasadena. You'll see some of the homes are gone in this area. We were able to look at this a couple days ago. What we're really concerned about is we did get up over the fire, and all of a sudden we are getting some gusty winds at altitude. We're up around 7,000 feet at this point in time. You see the helicopters are working this area, trying to hit it as hard as they can to stop this fire from spreading any further. But if we go back up to the head of the fire, up at Mount Wilson, it's really tough for us to tell whether or not Mount Wilson has been lost. But I can tell you right in the middle of that bloom up, that's where Mount Wilson is. And all of a sudden the winds seem to be picking up in this area. We'll get a couple of gusts, then it'll even out a little bit, and then all of a sudden we'll get hit pretty hard. So it's difficult for us to tell if they've lost Mount Wilson, but we had a couple of reports that they may have. So we're keeping an eye on this. Certainly we have this fire, we have the Palisades fire, but all of a sudden this fire, just like the Palisades fire, the wind kicks up a little bit, and boy, it really starts to take off. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Okay. All right, well, we're gonna stick it out here for a little bit. So if we want to go any further east, though, we got to climb to 10. You want to get 11? I'm just saying that's what we have to do. That's what we'd have to do. 10 is the top. How much further before we hit the TFR? Keep going north.
This is Eyewitness News with live breaking news.
Right now at 11:30, total devastation, the destruction in Pacific Palisades, nothing less than heartbreaking. We are live on the ground getting a very close-up look at what is lost. You're watching Eyewitness News at 11:30, live on ABC7, Hulu, and wherever you stream. I'm Philip Palmer.
And I'm Giovanna Lotta. City and county leaders held a news conference this morning, and here's the latest from them. Fire officials say the Palisades fire is proving to be a challenge, and wind gusts expected throughout the day will not help. Acreage burned stands at more than 17,000 acres with no containment at this time. Fire officials can only estimate the number of structures damaged or destroyed as being in the thousands. In the Eaton fire, fire officials say forward growth has stopped. 10,600 acres burned there, and this fire is also not contained. More than 1,000 structures are damaged or destroyed. In the Hearst fire in Sylmar, 855 acres have burned, again with no containment, but fire officials say a perimeter has been established and they're able to handle flare-ups overnight. We've also just learned all LAUSD schools will be closed again tomorrow. The largest of those fires is in the Palisades. We've been seeing the destruction from the air as well as from the ground. It's unbelievable. We, of course, have been on the ground for the past couple of days.
One of the people who's been there, Sid Garcia, he joins us now live from the Palisades with the very latest. Sid, I can only imagine how hard it is to see what you've seen.
You know what? Heartbreaking doesn't really begin to tell you how devastating it is around here. Behind me, that used to be Marquez Elementary School. And we talked to a couple of folks who live around here. This is where their kids went to school. And as you pan over to the right, you see more devastation. But with all the homes that were lost, then you see a lot of homes that were saved. So the luck of the draw, whatever you want to call it. Let's go ahead and show you a video from earlier this morning. The devastation, it's still been counted, but I can tell you is that there's still some hot spots and there are still firefighters going around here, not too far from right now. And directly behind this house, there was a fire left there, and off in the distance you can see what's left of their American flag. Let's take a look. Your home.
It's gone. It's gone. It's just devastating. This is my daughter Emma's preschool or kindergarten. It's gone. It's just devastating. It's just really tough. It's like a movie. It's so surreal. You can't describe how bad it is. The pictures and the news just don't do it justice.
It's crazy because he just moved in 3 years ago, and that street, it's block parties. Halloween is we live in Valencia. We come down and with the kids, and it's just kids everywhere. It's crazy, and you look and it's just wiped out. It's wiped out.
And he says he does plan to rebuild and start over with his family here. Live in Pacific Palisades, I'm Sid Garcia, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Okay, Sid, thank you. We were just talking. You see this devastation. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between Palisades and the Eaton fire. The Eaton fire is the second largest fire burning in our area. It's burned more than 10,000 acres, no containment, neighborhoods gone. This fire destroyed over 900 buildings officially. That's right now, and 5 people have died.
Zach Fuentes from our sister station KGO is in Altadena and joins us now live with an update. Zach.
Just so much heartbreak here in this neighborhood. We're seeing some of the houses that have been leveled, destroyed. That one just over there, that just happened in the last couple of hours. It is heartbreaking. This home next to it, firefighters worked so hard. We have Chelsea over here. I want to speak to you really quick. Your home is one of the, I think the only ones on this block saved right now. We saw firefighters working to save it. Your thoughts right now?
It's a mix of everything. I mean, I'm so grateful that the firefighters worked so hard to protect my home this morning. I know that my neighbor's house caught on fire this morning and they did everything they could to save mine, but I mean, if you look around, it doesn't, in the scheme of things, it doesn't really matter because all of my neighbors have so much. But this community is just amazing and everyone is really supportive of each other. And I know that there is a bright future ahead, but it's going to take a long time.
I've seen some of that support too. Chelsea, thank you so much for talking with us. I want to talk to Scott and Hazel over here too. Scott and Hazel, if you'll come in here. You're who Chelsea was talking about. You are some of those neighbors who have lost your home. Alex, why don't we show their home over here, but just tell me what happened. You guys left here a couple of days ago, right, Scott?
We actually, I think, got out before the major chaos started. Hazel had the, presence of mind to say, let's get out now. And we left around 10 p.m. on Tuesday night and got to our cousin's house safely in Toluca Lake. And then we watched our house burn on live TV yesterday morning. So we knew it was over. And then our neighbor Tom, who lived right here across the street, he told us this morning that Chelsea's house survived. So that's a bit of a win,
Yeah, let me have you face this way a little. Hazel, you were telling me about this community, these neighbors. how beautiful of a home this was, how beautiful the homes here on this block were. Describe it a little bit for us.
This is called Jane's Village. This was built around the 1920s by an architect, or I think a designer called Elisha P. James. So these were reminiscent of all the English cottages. So you can see a lot of fireplaces and all the pitch roofs are obviously no longer here. And it's a very close-knit community. You can walk around and you can just say hi to people, very supportive, and the town is just, you're still in Los Angeles. You can see Los Angeles when you walk up the trails, you can literally see the skyline, but you are in your little kind of happy environment because there's a lot of trees, very green, historical buildings, historical places, which we love. It feels more like a small village town.
And the spirit of that, I still see it among you guys, you neighbors, even though the physical buildings, so many of them are now gone. But Scott, you told me you were resolved to rebuild.
We absolutely are. I don't know what the first steps are going to be, but we're gonna rebuild. And we'll make it better.
I thank you guys so much for speaking with me. All the best to you. I know it's a long road ahead, and we thank you for sharing your perspective and really humanizing what is going on out here. Best of luck to you guys. You guys see, this story is one of many, so I'm going to send it back to you guys as we continue to follow what's out here, speak with neighbors about their path forward.
Zach, thank you. Thank you for bringing us those stories. It's hard to see. Scott Reif, we see and feel the stories from the ground, and then we see the devastation still possible from above. You're looking at Mount Wilson, more of the Eaton fire that is certainly not finished with its destruction.
No, this Eaton fire has a long way to go because it's burning in such thick, heavy fuel, and that is Mount Wilson. On the left side of your screen is the observatory. You see the Mount Wilson Observatory, the famous observatory. Edwin Hubble, I think, who discovered how light moves and how it redshifts and sort of discovered our place in the universe. At any rate, right now, they understand there's as many as 4 staff in the observatory, and they're waiting to see what's going to happen. They can come down to the north. The road going up to Mount Wilson goes north, and what you're seeing off to the right side of your screen is to the south, but it looks like they could possibly lose some of these antennas, and they are critical for communication. Like when we had the airport fire down in the Irvine area, we lost Santiago for a while. That affected our communication and our signal, and that certainly Mount Wilson losing that would be huge. Now, I'm not saying they're going to. They do have structure protection in place. They have firefighters up there, but right now the wind is kicked up a little bit. It's basically a terrain-driven fire for the most part. Once it gets to the top of the ridgeline, it should stall out a little bit. They're going to get some helicopters up here to make drops if they can. We're getting hammered pretty good up around 9,000 feet, and so I'm not sure they're going to be able to get in here and be effective with the helicopters, but unfortunately it looks like we could lose Mount Wilson. You can see the smoke is right up to those antennas, and then if I pan off to the right, I'll just give you a little perspective before I finish up here, and that's how the fire is burning down to the right. Huge flume. That's where all that smoke is laying down over Los Angeles, making it so unhealthy, even over the San Fernando Valley. And off to the right of your screen, that's Pasadena and Altadena. That's where we've lost that area. We just haven't been able to see it yet. We hope that we have been able to, but there's just been too much smoke. But I'll go back one more time just to give you this look. It appears to me that things are really starting to increase, that all of a sudden it's reached the top of that ridge line, and on the left side of your screen right there, we could lose Mount Wilson. It's just starting to really take off and erupt. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
We want to update you on some breaking news now. Scott Reif is showing you this image right now. This is the Eaton fire, and it is burning near Mount Wilson. Now, if it burns down some of those antennas there, communication will be affected for us. The signal for ABC7 might go out for you. But in the event that happens, you can still stream our newscast. You probably have experienced a power outage over the past few days due to the wind event, and many people, my family included, were streaming our broadcast when the power went out. They did it on their phones. So just scan the QR code right there on your screen. You can download the free ABC7 Los Angeles app. You can also get the latest weather information, any breaking news updates on these fires. So really, that app has been a connection, a lifeline for so many people during what we've faced over the last couple of days.
Yeah, it's so important to stay informed, especially at this time. And from these pictures, we can see that those winds are dying down a little bit, but they seem to be coming back alive. And we're hearing word about possible 60-mile-an-hour winds later. We've got Danny Romero following that. Danny.
Yeah, we got those wind gusts that are the real concern. The steady winds are coming down, although they're going to be ramping up as well. I'm going to show you that here in a second. That said, because of the winds and the very dry conditions and the ongoing fires, we're going to have this red flag warning in effect until tomorrow. This area here around Acton, that's where we have a high wind watch. That's the possibilities of those 60-mile-per-hour gusts that you were talking about, Javon. But give you an idea in the fire zones. Here's how the wind profile's looking. Kick it up a little bit by this afternoon, just a bit up 10 miles per hour, then taking a bit of a break during the afternoon. But then look at this. Nighttime, overnight, it ramps back up again, that 30-mile-per-hour range in the early morning hours around the Palisades fire. So that area, be very, very aware of the aforementioned Eaton fire. Here, too, yes, just like you said, ramping up at the moment, 13 up to 16, taking a break here during the evening hours, but then right back up again as winds increase again during the overnight hours. So we're not out of this thing at all. Here's a great shot of how those winds are looking over the area right now. We're seeing those 40-mile-per-hour winds. The areas are shown in that purple. Those are the really strong winds, 50, 60-mile-per-hour winds. So, yeah, the wind event is not quite done. We are still going to be in an area of concern. So looking ahead on the AccuWeather 7-day forecast, we're going to stay warm, and we're going to see windy conditions. So red flags still there Thursday and Friday. The weekend comes. Here's a break from the winds, cooler temperatures, but hang on, another wind event, another Santa Ana event. Not quite as strong, but coming our way again to kick off next week. For the Valley's Inland Empire, same idea. A couple of warm days, red flags still in play. The break on the weekend, much needed. But then here we go, back up to another wind event to start next week. Winds back up in that 45, 50-mile-per-hour range. For the beaches, we're going to see those conditions staying there. Dry at the coast, keeping the red flag there. Cool for the weekend. Another wind event to start next week. Mountain spots also. Winds are always so strong in the mountain areas, so expect those to continue Thursday, Friday, but taking a break on the weekend, but back in play again to start next week. Looking for the desert spots. The high desert stays on the cool side, 60s. Palm Springs, low desert in the 70s. There, too, winds are still going to be strong Thursday and Friday into the weekend, kind of breezy. And then once again, another wind event coming Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. More on ABC7 Eyewitness News coming up after this.
Updating breaking news right now as we take a look at the Eaton fire approaching Mount Wilson. A couple other notes due to these fires. We have learned all LAUSD schools will once again be closed tomorrow.
And we've also learned Lakers game tonight in downtown has been postponed. Totally understandable. Last night, the Kings game was postponed at Crypto.com Arena because of the fires. So many things being put into perspective because of what we've all faced. We will be right back.
And breaking news, we have yet another fire to worry about and follow on this already difficult day. We've got Scott Rife and AIR7 over Mount Wilson. No homes threatened here that we know of, obviously, because it's the peak of Mount Wilson, but important communication towers and the Mount Wilson Observatory now threatened. Scott.
Absolutely, yeah. You can see how close it is to the observatory there, and on the right side of your screen, you can see sort of the antenna farm. And almost every TV station, law enforcement, police, fire, everything, they have a repeater site up here. We shoot our microwave signal to this area, and the fire is basically right now mostly a terrain-driven fire. And if you compare this fire, the Eaton fire, to what we have, say, in the Palisades fire, there's just a lot more fuel here. Now, unfortunately, the Palisades fire is burning closer to a lot of homes. This fire is burning away from most of those homes in Pasadena and is burning up the ridgeline. But this fire is going to take a long time to put out. I think they may be able to make some sort of progress on the Palisades fire, but this fire is in steep, heavy terrain. It's in heavy fuel. We understand there are 4 people working at the observatory, and they're waiting it out. The route out of here is to the north, and the fire is coming in from the south. But more than likely, they're going to have to evacuate, I would assume, if this continues to burn like this. Fire protection is in place, but boy, you could tell it's possible this whole ridgeline could go up and we could lose the observatories.
Well, Scott, they're so surgical in their air support of this firefight, so they probably are watching this and will attack it, if possible, when they see an opportunity, right?
They certainly will. You know, I don't see any helicopters dropping water on it at the moment, and I'm not certain. Here we go. We may see one coming up right now. So there's a helicopter. He may very well come way to the top of the hill and drop there around the Mount Wilson observatories and our antenna farms up there. So that's the first one we've really seen. But if we open up out of this shot, I'm not certain exactly where he's going to make that drop. But boy, this fire is consuming so much fuel so quickly. It has really accelerated in the last hour or so. The winds are relatively calm. We got hit pretty hard with some high winds, and then they sort of died down for a moment. So that is certainly key. But you could tell the fire is burning uphill. It's a terrain-driven fire, and it looks like the helicopter is going to make a drop on this ridgeline. So maybe they're not as concerned about the top of Mount Wilson as we think. You know, it's hard for us to really gauge it sometimes. And that drop there, all that water, I'm not sure why the pilot dropped there. It doesn't look to me like that is going to be effective at all. It will just evaporate before it hits the ground. But we're going to show you once again Mount Wilson, and that's really where the concern is right now.
Yes, and of course the wind a factor, but also the drought conditions that we are now officially in. Very, very dry and not much rain recently, so a lot of brush to burn. Scott?
Yeah, and we did just hear they're asking for critical need for infrastructure up on top of the hill. So things are critical as far as the fire department is concerned. There's only one way up there and one way out. It's from the, you know, you could go up there from the north and you travel south to go up on top of the hill there. So they can evacuate away from the flames as soon as they decide. But if they're asking for critical need on top of the hill, more than likely everyone's going to be evacuated. We just hope we don't lose these antennas. They are very important. And of course, the observatories, there's a couple of them up there. We would hate to lose those. They are historic.
Yes, Scott, thank you very much. And you really notice the magnitude of this, the size of this, when you see how small the helicopter looked when it was right up against those fires. And don't forget, folks, we've got to make sure that we remind you, download the free ABC7 Los Angeles app. In the event we lose communication or signal because of this fire, you'll be able to see us on that app.
That's it for Eyewitness News at 11 a.m.
We'll see you later. GMA3, what you need to know is next.